Hello, everyone. We are just about to start the event. We'll start in 2 minutes. I request everybody to please settle down. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, and esteemed participants. I am Shreya Shivpuri, your host for this evening. It is an absolute privilege to welcome you all to this event organized by India Employer Forum in partnership with TeamLease Services Limited. The topic for the day is demystifying people balancing in the next 10. India Employer Forum is a non-profit community platform that seeks to discuss, understand, and document different aspects of employment as we prepare for India at 100. The world of work has been witnessing huge changes, and in this event, we attempt to deliberate and discuss some recent developments and their impact on business. In today's event, we have a keynote address and three panel sessions. In the first session, we will delve into the discussion on optimizing talent management, addressing attrition challenges, and refining hiring strategies. Taking the discussion further, in our second panel, we will speak about transforming human capital and how to move beyond staff count to skill count. The third and the final session will talk about the changing consumer behavior and how to sustain your business now and in the next 10 years. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our distinguished keynote speaker, Mr. Karthik Narayan, the CEO of TeamLease Services Limited. Before joining TeamLease, he held significant roles at Vodafone Idea as EVP and National Head of Strategic Accounts. At Cisco India as Regional Director for Riverbed Technologies, and he played a pivotal role in establishing Bharti Airtel USA Limited's US operations at Airtel. I welcome Mr. Karthik to the stage.
Everybody watching us across India on social media getting live stream. Sorry about the delay in kind of beginning. I think in the not so distant future, as far as Bangalore is concerned, I think coming to office would probably have 10% KRA weightage, right? Given the distances that most of us travel. But welcome to the India Employment Forum, co-hosted by TeamLease. I was having a chat with one of my colleagues, a couple of days back. If you pick up, any business newspaper, you would see, unbridled enthusiasm about growth, about every single sector being doing disproportionately well. Right? Of course, some big about tech and so on and so forth. But overall, if you pick up, media, you'll see disproportionate, stories about growth happening. I was just having a chat with one of the panelists saying not the right time for it to happen, especially UP around the corner, but still, discussions on growth are one of the overwhelming themes you pick up, any media newspaper. Let's look at, some of the news which I picked up this week. I think one of the first ones I saw was, Reliance crossing 20 lakh crore market cap. Just to put that in context, that's literally the GDP of New Zealand or Qatar close to home. What the other news we picked up was, Valentine's Day sale for quick commerce crossed 30%. Actually, if you have read the sub-context, it was even funnier, which of course, amongst many things, shows the growth problems that were happening, right? It was lovers looking for flowers, quick commerce companies looking for drivers, drivers looking for bikes, right? So if it's not funny, it was true. And that's exactly the kind of problems they face. Then auto sales have been at the highest this January, and then a beverage company is looking at literally doubling its investment. So there's no particular sector which seems to be doing that. And of course, there are underlying challenges to this, and we were chatting about it a while back with a few panelists over here. But if you really look at it, outside of issues around regulation, ease of doing business, and perhaps infrastructure, it is no doubt that India is going to consolidate position over the next couple of decades, leading up to 2047 to become a $35 trillion economy, right? And this would literally be achieved even if we grow at our 6 or 7% that we've been speaking about. But outside of this, if you look at interwoven with our dream about being able to reach this 35 trillion economy, our single most important asset are people. Our people are going to be the significant cornerstone of what we're going to be able to achieve. The last time I felt such enthusiasm, to be honest with you, was really around the time I was graduating in 1999, where there was so much enthusiasm about jobs, etc. All that lasted for a period of time till about 2007, 2008. And then, of course, there were challenges around that particular time, not necessarily India, but across the globe for us to be able to reach, kind of where we reach. Today, as we have gathered here, discuss just that, saying amongst many things which are going to be really responsible for India to grow, I think the number one issue which we need to be solving for as a country are around people issues. And therefore, the topic that we have chosen for ourselves to kind of debate and discuss is demystifying people's supply chain issues. And the reason for this is, I mean, we are participating in a whole lot of CII and FICCI conferences. While there is a lot of discussion on hard infrastructure to be built up, on regulations, ease of doing business. Some of you might have seen, the Jan Vishwas bill getting passed, etc., and all that. I think the level of discussion which is required to be spoken about, especially with respect to people, is not getting the kind of sufficient attention that we expect it to get. And this is going to be one of the single most important, topics that we need to pick up as a country if we need to kind of be able to deliver what we are expected to do. Right? Amongst many things, some of the questions which are coming forward, and we speak with a lot of leaders, does India have an unemployment issue, or does India have a skill, talent issue, right? Does India have a attrition issue, or does India have a once in a lifetime opportunity issue? Does India have a wages issue, or does India have a productivity issue? I think these are some of the single most important questions that we need to look at to be able to answer. I think one thing all of us can agree, given the example that I gave earlier, was amongst many things we can reasonably agree that some of our biggest challenges are challenges due to growth more than anything else, right? And therefore, it's a happy kind of situation to hear. Sometimes, of course, enthusiasm, gets the better of many of these, publications. One of the headlines that I recently picked up was how startups stopped worrying about attrition. And I was like, wait a minute, how does that happen, right? Either it's a case where, if the point when reality is too bad, then there is always fantasy. That's one. Or it's a case where somebody's really planted, some story to be able to negotiate perhaps for their AOP going next. Admission is now here to stay. But if you look really outside of this, as a professional who really believes saying we need to examine not just our failures but our successes more closely, I think it's really important for us to understand saying what are some of those issues which are going to impact from a people perspective, right? And I'll come to what are the subtopics around it. But one interesting fact, whenever it comes to India, and I think it's really good for us to understand, is to have the context, because when we speak India, I think there are really large numbers being spoken about. Let's look at one number which I always kind of find it very fascinating to think. We are a population of roughly about 145 crores, right? If you look at the sheer amount of labor force, which is working population, that's working age population is 90 crores. The actual labor force is roughly about 52 odd crores. That, if you look at the formal workforce, is 8 crores, which is approximately some of us, in this group belong to that formal workforce. If you want to kind of look at that 8 crores number and see, further as to how it correlates. The number of the people who are there in EPFO is roughly about 7 crores. The number of people who pay income tax, for example, is roughly about number of people who file income tax is 7 crores. Actually, the people who pay is only 2 crores. So now look at the reverse of 145 crores population, hardly 2 crores people who pay. Right? Again, if you try and put that in context, that's a percent and a half to population. If you look at, and of course, we are closer to $4 trillion economy. If you look at, for example, some of the developed countries, I think in the United States, for $27 trillion economy, it's about 65, 70% people who pay out of the 300 billion who are there. So just to put a context, closer home, China is close to 10 and 11% because of different tax structures, etc. On that, but still 1.5% is way too low. So that's, I think one of the numbers. I think the other number we need to really look at um, as we kind of move forward is the entire concept of apprenticeship, right? I think the thought and belief saying everybody is going to finish their high school, go and do graduation, and then be going to be employed in a job, I think it's far fetched. If you look at international labor organizations, what they suggest for most developing countries, the sheer number of people who get employed, right after their high schools into some sort of a skill learning would go on to job anywhere between 2.5% to 15%. In India, it's about 7 people for every 10,000, right? That's way too less. And much before China became the manufacturing house, it was Germany who kind of cracked this. For being the size of country it is, there's disproportionate number of apprentices because that's the way they kind of built up, right? The other, important thing is, we, last year, I think around pretty much around the same time, Goldman Sachs came out with a report on two different things. One was obviously, everybody speaks about the $35 trillion thing. We also spoke about 2075 when India will become the second largest, displacing even the United States will become $52 trillion. I think the report was interesting for many things as to what it highlighted. That what would be required for us to do to be able to even reach that number. But for a moment, I think there's a lot of disbelief saying, do we even expecting ourselves to become $35 billion by 2047? Actually, one only needs to step back a little bit to know that at some point in time we were already there. Right? Let me give some context. 1700, we were close to about 27% of global economy. Right? Now, some might say, listen, who's seen 1700? Just look too far in the past. Never mind, please look at 1912, published data. Okay, India was still about 14-15% of global economies. But today's terms, it would have been global economy is about $84 trillion. Or today's terms, it would be $40 trillion. Slightly just behind. So we were there. So this is not so much about um, India emerging as much as about a renaissance, about India coming back to its form, right? So that's the important part. Now, that's not news to me. It's bound to happen. But what is the other aspect of the report shows as to why, we would be, or what would be the single important constraint for us to kind of be able to go forward, right? I think there are two specific things which are important. I think the one important thing is dependency ratio. Over the next 20 years, the number of people who are working age population to the number of people who are going to be dependent on those people is going to be the lowest for India for the next 20 years. Which means everything that we have to get it done, whether building up our manufacturing base, really taking up our infrastructure services, we have a once in a lifetime opportunity over the next 20-25 years. So that's one thing. I think the second thing which is really importantly called out is productivity. And this topic is not discussed upon. I mean, CHROs that I speak to, and one for a very large spoke about how 100 metric ton, business probably requires 100 people, in a European capital, which requires about close to 1,000 people to be able to deliver. Of course, indexed and normalized for automation and so on and so forth, it would still be almost 1:10. So I think productivity is a really important norm. I think a really large part of productivity, which is important for us to really understand, is labor force participation. And amongst that, even labor force participation, women participation is even more important, right? And productivity is easily understood. It is the output per unit of capital that you put in, and I think that's the concept. But why is that important? Of course, we speak about us becoming $4 trillion economy. Why is it all per capita? Why is productivity important? And I think part of the reason is, despite the fact that we are the fifth largest, from a per capita income perspective, we are still 135th or something, right? In real terms, nominal terms, we slightly better, 128. That means the output at an individual level is very low. And I think that's an important aspect of it, as we kind of move forward. And if India at all has to beat China and we have to become, $35 trillion, if you do the math, you'll figure out that, which basically means everybody in India is living in Bangalore. right? Because Bangalore has a per capita GDP of about 11,000 dollars. So we hope India becomes like Bangalore, minus the traffic, of course, and then we would have arrived, right, by 2035. So I think that's what we need to achieve, and that's the path we need to go. The other aspect we have to look at that, and that's quite macro. Looking what's happening to corporate India. If you look at it, I think the number one thing you should look at, and this is for me amongst many things, this is the number one most important thing: attrition. Global attrition is about 13, 14%. India attrition is 21, 22%, and that's an average. India, as you know, is predominantly services. It's services, 20 odd percent agriculture, and the balance manufacturing. Of course, we are over indexing on manufacturing, or at least trying to get there. So therefore, if you look at it from that context, to have a 20% attrition is completely not acceptable at all. And of course, part of it, like I gave it spoke in my introduction, a large part of it is also because India is growing, because it's growing at a fierce pace, and there's pool of people available. There's little or nothing that you can do to be able to manage that aspect. But there are certain things that we need to do to make sure that apply to it. So attrition is number one problem that we're really looking at. Second thing is about being able to hire talent. I think most of us in this room would agree that amongst many things, if the last few years, especially during pandemic, post-pandemic, the number one function which has disproportionate burnout to recruiting. By the way, that was not just in India; it was across the globe, right? And when you look at from a talent perspective, I think time to hire, quality hire, all metrics that we look at. And I'll tell you, for my own business, the previous year we had about 28,000 all entry level workers, 28,000 for the year. But this year, just the first half, we hired 28,000. So what we did the entire last year, we did in the first half of the year. Which means, obviously, when you do at that scale, you'll have to compromise on some stuff to be able to hire at that, pace. I think amongst many issues, that's the number one thing that we need to look at solve for. What is happening in India now as compared to what was happening before? I think one is there is a significant shift which is happening from services to manufacturing. Um, Many of us who chose did not believe, or perhaps did not take credence as to what's really going to come up from PLI make to India, and even if it's important, I want to give you just one statistic, because the statistics out there in the open. There is so much talked about, which is mobile manufacturing that we are speaking about. Just to tell you what potential there is in that space alone. You take a small country like Vietnam, right? And the way to kind of do this comparison is to see saying how much you consume yourself and how much you export, right? India consumes about $50 billion worth of mobile phones every year. I mean, that's our consumption. How much do we export? We export hardly $10 billion. There are two companies have been doing that, Apple and Samsung mostly. Let's reverse it and look at Vietnam, what it does. Its own internal consumption is only $2 billion. It exports 50 billion. So for a small country like that, with that kind of manufacturing prowess, and for India, you can well imagine saying that EV and some of the other spaces, if we get our act together, the sky is the limit in terms of us being able to do it. We're just having a chat with somebody. We completely missed the manufacturing part and we moved to services. But there is no doubt about the fact that manufacturing is going to be a real thing. We are able to need to kind of move ahead and be able to provide jobs to people, right? I think the other thing which is going to significantly happen is our knowledge, our place in the knowledge economy, right? It used to be that we were not there with respect to some cutting edge research. So it's most of it taking place at universities abroad and R&D center. I think that part is now changing. Slowly, you see a lot of startups which are there in India getting acquired. My multinationals abroad, and consolidating kind of their space because of the sheer amount of new age research which is going on, whether it is AI, ML, or sustainable energy, or so on and so forth. So I think our place in the knowledge economy is still in more ways than one. And I think that's a shift which is taking place as well. I think the third part which is going to take place is we are going to become net exporter of finished products rather than just raw materials. For far too long in the past, I think we were exporting just raw materials. I think that shift is also taking place along with the shift which is happening towards manufacturing. How do we look at being able to accomplish some of this? There are 3 or 4 points that we're looking at, and these are going to be important from a country perspective. But amongst the several issues that we spoke about, I think as far as corporate India is concerned, I think challenges around attrition, hiring, and productivity are going to be the single biggest challenge that we need to look at solving. As far as we are concerned, I think there are 3 or 4 very large actions that as a nation that we need to take. I think the number one, and this might be slightly counterintuitive, but it's very important. The number one is going to be able to take jobs to people. rather than people to jobs, right? I would not have known this, unless I would have joined the current company that I'm working for. But to give you an example, I think all the young people are actually up in north. All the jobs seems to be in some sense down in south, right? Especially the manufacturing jobs. So to be able to kind of move them is one aspect of it. But for India to be able to really grow and have, a much more balanced economic, perspective, I think it'd be really important for us to be able to take jobs to people rather than people to jobs. So I think that's one aspect of it. I think the second important aspect of it, which is going to be significantly different for this generation and the generation ahead, is for us to be able to do skill development. I think it's reasonable to expect that many people will have not one but multiple jobs as they move ahead in their career in the future. I don't think so. It will be like what it is in the past, where you join a job and you have only a single, role that you do for a longer period of time. I think that's the second part. Third part that we spoke about was largely around being able to enable apprenticeship. I think it's important for a country like India to realize that not everybody is going to have a full graduation and being able to do a post graduation and then get a job. I think it'll be important for us to be able to enable, youngsters who have finished a particular high school, provide them the skills so that they get, well paid. India at 100, therefore, is not just a dream of economic milestones. It's a vision where each Indian, in my view, powered by knowledge, skill, and opportunity, contributes to a narrative of global leadership. As we discuss and deliberate today on supply chain issues over the next few years, let's remember that a path to university, $35 trillion is paved with dreams, aspirations, and hard work for people. And I think it's important for us to kind of commit to nurturing them, for they are going to be the heart, soul, and engine of India at 100. Thank you so much, and I look forward to listening to all of you.
Thank you, Mr. Karthik Narayan, for your enlightening keynote speech. Your valuable insights have sparked a meaningful conversation and has already set the stage for an engaging discussion at this event. As a part of this industry, two questions and two points which stuck my mind from Karthik's keynote speech was, one was that, is it really the employment issue, the skilled employment issue? Second being the attrition of India is 22%. Why, how, and how can we improve that? So with this, next up, we have our first panel discussion, and I would like to welcome Ms. Ritu Moitra, CHRO Duroflex, who will be moderating the session, along with our panelists, Mr. Janardhan Narayan Swamy, CHRO Stovecraft Limited, Mr. Ravi Kumar, Chief People Officer, Page Industries, Mr. Bapuji Chikkanagappa, Senior Director HR, Flipkart. Requesting you all to join me on stage. Please give them a round of applause.
Good evening, everybody. I hope I am audible clearly. Okay, thanks. So the session one is Tap into Success, and it is all about the holistic approach for talent acquisition and productivity. Thanks, Karthik, for laying a great foundation to a macro view of what the country is going through, the organized sector as such. It was phenomenal data plus insights to gulp it in a last 10-15 minutes. But here I am with three CHRO CPOs, and we will get closer to the ground. Like what exactly happened? Till now, the work was difficult, but not too difficult. We were looking for the purple unicorn in terms of hiring, right? In terms of what comparable for the candidate, it had not the list. But now the challenges are like you definitely need the purple unicorn, but you need them to stay. They should learn more than they like if they fight the traffic or whatever, they should definitely see that yes, I have arrived in office and here I am to do a rocket sales. Sorry for my Bollywood references, but yeah, this is like I just wanted to lay like in terms of it requires somebody who's very enthusiastic coming to office, putting in the great hard work, but more of a brain work, and also deciding to stay back with us and be rewarding what is the right compensation effective while keeping the people cost and in control, but your neighbor might be looking at them because they are the local unicorns whom they want. So yeah, so this is what we all feel, right, every day in and out. So here I am with the three gentlemen, and I would like them to first introduce themselves, and I will ask them one personal question. Like, I definitely know you chose HR, but what still drives you to be in this profession? What is like a Monday morning? What is the first thought which comes in? That drives you. Yeah. So I will open the session for you, Janardhan.
Yeah, Ritu. I think Karthik, you set the stage extremely well. Have a lot of optimism, a lot of numbers there. Now, coming back, my introduction, I have been in the industry for almost 33 years. In the HR profession as a head of HR for last 12 to 15 years, in HR for last 20 years. I also started my career in sales with Pfizer Limited. So I came up with the Pfizer University. Now, coming back, what motivates me at this point of time? So I'm a bit great. So, uh, contributing. I always continue to maintain that the only power HR can wield is power of contribution. I tell my colleagues, at least demonstrate a willingness to contribute to the business, to people. I think what you call Aldrich and Brockbank talks about those four aspects. Employee champion. So much to do. And today, technology is really it's a disruptor. It's a great opportunity. I think we can standardize a lot of things through technology. I think that motivates me and drives me to come to office. Yeah.
Hey, hi. So my name is Bapuji. I'm part of HR with Flipkart, spending about 20-25 years in managing both blue and white collars at different stages of life. So only reason I'm this side is I came little early. So so happy to share with you why I go to work every single day and what keeps me on is maybe an opportunity to help a business leader to succeed. So I count my days, how many people came to me to probably share their problems or make me part of their problem solving maybe team. So that keeps me awake and enthusiastic all the time.
Thanks, Bapuji, and it was wonderful to listen to you. What you answered would have in their mind as questions. So, well, wonderful. My name is Ravi Kumar, and I look after human resources for Page Industries. And it's been around 26, 27 years in HR. So that's a strange question, Ritu. I'm actually thinking, why do I really come to work? Maybe I'll go back after this session and decide to change my profession. But
I'm sorry.
okay, the fun part is that HR is a fun job, right? Yes, it is. And I'll agree with Babuji. It's a lot about uh, really working to contribute to solutions. Right? So there's a business, and we are part of the business. We have business roles, and I think it's really fun to be able to provide solutions. And it's also like making a product. So you see a solution that you suggested, and it goes into the market, and it's actually being implemented. So it's a lot of fun with them.
I do agree. And there is, I will just add, like, there is no, like, everything is out of the paper. Like, you can never predict what a person will come up with and, talk about. So it is such an unpredictable thing on the go. And that's the beauty of this. There is no monopoly ever. Like every day is new, it is always a day one. I think so that keeps me going. Okay, so that was a nice warm up. I think so we all did in terms of knowing each other and understanding what drives us to work, not literally, but in terms of the work as such. So here's the first question, Frank, in terms of I'm also learning on the go with you in terms of I think something out of this kind of thing. So how much is the human capital investment adding value now to exactly the time of use? And does this go as a strategic thought process first and the last thing to follow? Uh, Maybe from previous organizations or your current organization or your overall view. So do you think it's an added cost or it really makes the human capital in? Yeah. So we'll start with you, Jonathan.
So, a difficult question, but I diverse experience. When I was part of an industry which was talking about a product margin or gross margin of 75% each, I think it was easy to invest in people. So it was more of investment perspective, not a cost perspective. When you come to the other side on the appliance industry, where I'm there for almost 2 years, cost is a very important factor. So if you talk about the strategic differentiation, this particular organization, current organization is basically cost leadership and quality. If we're not able to control costs, we cannot compete in the market. So I think we need to look from a cost perspective. We have been looking from, when I used to be part of Pfizer, we used to take pride when Pfizer was a billion organization, when they acquired a 102 billion organization, biggest acquisition in the global industry, across industries in 2001, followed by another 60 billion of Pharmacia. The investment, so we used to talk about, Pfizer used to be a spender of R&D across industries. 10 billion in 2005 was something which was mind-boggling. But they're not able to sustain this because pipelines are dry. So for me, it is a balance between investment and cost perspective. But human capital is a very important element in this. And as Karthik rightly said, I think productivity is something which we have to look at. And if we have to look at productivity, we have to look at productivity from a internal perspective. Look within how do we internally benchmark productivity before externally benchmark productivity. As they seeing some of the managed books, draw in what is left out uh, rather than drawing out what is left in. So, I mean, drawing out what is left in rather than drawing in what is left out. So, I think internal perspective is very important. We, as HR, I think we need to understand as to what are the strategic differentiators of the organization in the marketplace. And if we don't, uh, contextualize our HR policies, systems, and process to make the organization win in the marketplace, I think we're not delivering our job. That is my take on this. Thanks.
Yeah. Let's hear from you.
Yeah, it's quite a interesting question, and tried to understand this little bit more from quite some time. So somehow couldn't guess or arrive at some answer, but I kept thinking about it. So I'll just only share my thoughts how I've been looking at it from quite some time. So there is a business strategy, and then there is maybe a growth from 3x to 3x, and then how we do it, ways to do it, and timeline. So these are all the initial slides. Last few slides, maybe one or two slides are about people strategy. So people strategy invariably has a component of maybe having talent and then developing talent and then all the routine things. So the developing talent, investing in making people development agenda as one of the key investments has always been a very interesting topic, and there is no definitive answer in my mind. Is it right, wrong? Then I try to figure out maybe an answer in between. So maybe segment probably talent into different segments and maybe skilled, unskilled, or maybe different levels of uniqueness of roles they hold, and then figure out where will be the ROI best, where I should invest, maybe which talent is most critical for my business and where to put my money on. And there are many other roles which probably can continue to be doing routine, regular, probably monotonous roles. So there was also a company where I worked where the founder always believed in getting great things done by mediocre people. That was Reliance for about 10 years I was there. So they always believed in, of course, they do have some specific high quality talent for certain roles, but lot of roles are mostly they prefer to have relatively less or maybe relatively less competent people and probably get best out of them over a period of time. That is where they invest their maximum dollars into. So evolving, but not a definitive answer, but segmentation of talent and then preferring where to develop probably is one approach.
Thank you, Ritu. I personally believe, and I think my own experience has borne this out, is that there's no separate people strategy and there's no separate business strategy. And some of you all are smiling, but sounds cliche, but it is true. So there are many examples. At least I've seen in some of my organizations that I worked in. So for example, been saying, Govind, when you're acquiring another organization, when you make your plans, when you look at the M&A aspects, feasibility, etc., the first thing that used to happen was an HR team would be sent into the likely potential candidate that was going to be acquired, understand the culture, understand what's happening there, come back, and then the others would follow it. Would be finance, business development, etc. Would move in, and then we look at an acquisition, and does that work or not? Is what we look at. So while making a strategy, while making a business strategy, looking at what to do in the next 5 years, I think there's no question about not talking about people. Some of the more recent examples are companies which go into tier 2 and tier 3 towns. And I think you mentioned a little bit about how India is growing. It's all about helping talent at these tier 3 towns, for example. I guess Infosys, TCS, etc. Even Reliance is doing that these days. And you see a huge number of tech centers coming up in places like Bhubaneswar, for example, which none of us ever thought about. So I think this is part of the strategy. This is part of the thinking of many of our senior leaders, and I think it's been like this for many years. It's not new. It's just us HR folks who think that there's a separate people strategy. It is not true at all.
Great. You all are agreeing on authentic courses, while cost is definitely the important driver. It has to justify an outcome to some extent, but a business strategy is actually a business strategy because people are the one who drive the business. You can't think one without the other. So that's a great way to get started. So the second one is like I will just take the data from again Karthik's. Thanks Karthik for coming in from the like, he is so much to harp about. So he spoke about that global attrition ranges around 12, 13, 14 percentage, while in India 2021 is an average. Now there would be sectors which would have tremendous retail, the option is definitely a very high attrition segment. Uh, yeah, IT is slightly having a downturn, but yeah, every engineer would have at least three offers for it. That used to be a way. So this, I think so the thermostat around attrition has become a little higher in terms of our, I would say, 2021 and we say that great job. That's how. So has it almost changed for all of you? Like over the years, like all of you are with a minimum of 2 decades to 3 decades of experience. Has the thermostat gone higher? And is there any modifier to rein in that? Yeah. So because now the other way around. Why don't you come first?
I like it when you call it a thermostat. All right, that's interesting. I guess this thermostat changes based on the moods in the boardroom, right? So if the mood is good, then the higher attrition rate is out. If the mood is bad in the boardroom and, like he says, the AOPs are not turning out to be too good for next year, then the attrition is definitely good. But I think it's not about so much about getting used to it. I think there are business cycles, there are different phases that many of us go through in our own organizations, and based on where we are, we either get used to it or we say that it's too much. So, for example, for retail, something like 20 is absolutely okay. The moment I move into a manufacturing organization, 20 is horrible. My productivity comes down because I'm constantly hiring new staff to perform on the line. So I don't think it has come to a stage where we accept it. I think it's a question of where we are at the stage and in terms of the phase of the organization. But for sure, what's happening in India, and I think Karthik pointed out a lot of data, there's a lot of growth. It's exponential growth, and more growth is coming. And the younger generation today, and that's where we see most attrition, and I think my colleagues here will agree with that as well. Uh, it's spoiled for choices, right? And that's one aspect that we all have to come to terms to, I think. And it's not that I accept the 20% is fine, but it's just that I have to make do with that 20% because that's ground reality today with the younger generation. And if I look at what's the culture for my parents, for example, working in one whole organization, entire life was absolutely normal. For me, this is my fourth organization, and for my daughter, who's probably going to get into a job later this year, she's already talking about deciding which company to join. I didn't have a choice when I first joined L&T, for example. So these are cultural aspects as well, which are changing. And I think leaving an organization and then coming back to the same organization as well is not looked down upon even today. So attrition by itself may not be such a major issue for business. And I think, as long as in a business person's mind, it's clear that I can manage that aspect up to a 20%, 18%, it should be fine. And maybe that's where the thermostat has moved now.
I think you followed very well in terms of how the times have changed. So, like, it is more like our grandparents work for livelihood. The bread won't be there on the table. For our parents, it was more of a standard of living, and for this generation, it is like self-actualization. So the EVP has to be constantly tweaked in order to engage the workforce. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Babuji. So I would like to hear more from you, because considering the amount of hirings that you do, would you like to share that data? And that's really something which will have the jaws for me. Would you like to start with your hiring data and then how attrition pains you?
Yeah, Ritu. So I'll just speak some numbers. So I was fortunate to have worked with large assignments, which gave me opportunity to maybe interact with large number of workforce in hiring, maybe in de-hiring as well. So in multiple assignments which I did, there was opportunity to hire as high as about 10 lakh people a year, and then maybe de-hire about 5 to 6 lakh in that. So it was quite fast and a huge churn. So now coming back to attrition, attrition is no good, and challenge is it has got all the pros and cons that we all know. But with changing times, the way Karthik was explaining, so one of the point was it's manufacturing to be the next focus area, and we have enough services, and services will continue to grow. But manufacturing is probably here to stay, and probably we need to spend more time around that. But when I started my career, it was exactly opposite. So it's one generation, about 25 years. So we saw complete cycle. So we have enough manufacturing. It is time for us to look at services. So Bangalore is core of services, IT services. So we need to catch up with many other services, maybe tourism, maybe hospitality. So today, in such a short time, we're again talking. There is an opportunity. China plus one will have an opportunity for us. So fast-paced time also gives opportunity for growth, and that growth also gives more new jobs coming in as more workforce comes into stream. So there are more opportunities coupled with younger workforce, as Ravi says. So when I joined my current company, so I was about 34, 35, and I was the oldest. So they looked at me as, how come this uncle joined our workforce? The average age was around 24, 25, 26. My manager was 15 years younger to me, and he had all the rights to be my manager, including the maturity, which we often think that they may miss. So the workforce has changed, and their aspirations are very, very different. We never imagined not to have work for maybe 1 or 2 months was okay. At least I never imagined my life 6 months job gap is okay. It was never okay. It was taboo. It was not acceptable in family, personally also. But today it is perfectly okay not to have a job and uh, to discover myself for 6 months is perfectly okay. And aspirations, and that drives new exploration for new opportunities. And there are many opportunities. So uh, they keep looking at new learning, uh, maybe new assignments, new streams. So that also drives attrition. So that comes back to the point where uh, probably reining in attrition is one important role that we do day in and day out, figure out reasons and then try to see how to address those reasons and try to figure out root causes. But the other side is also true, how to make my workplace probably to manage attrition, okay, with attrition, how to arrange my maybe process, maybe standard operating process, and make it little more uh, maybe nimble, so that I'm okay with attrition, though I don't like it. So very interesting. Yeah.
So yeah, Janal, do you have any mantras to help people, reach the
So I'll talk about some of the factors. It's again, I mean, both of my co-panelists talk about attrition, industry specific. Manufacturing has a certain amount of productivity issue because I've seen the assembly line. If you got a hybrid of new talent versus old talent, definitely the productivity and slowing down of the line happens. Uh, if you're talking about, so we got stores. Now, if we got stores, it doesn't matter. Customer doesn't relate to the person. If you're able to possibly train the person and customer friendly, there is no, it moves on, right? Moves on. When I was in the previous industry, there are a lot of people in sales. Consistency is a very important factor. Customer face, the person changes. So I used to keep this particular joke called Sita Gita Sangita. So this is a one line which I used to use it. So I used to tell about when I used to call a bank. First name Sita picks up, second name Sita picks up, Sangeeta picks up actually, and the customer does not know the resolution of the issue. So there are now those industries say the chatbots and the AI has definitely resolved issues. So attrition is going to stay as far as many industries are concerned. Aspiration levels of so today also for an average engineer MBA graduate, when it comes to global salaries, it should be in the 30 to 48 percentage of the global salaries. So people are seeing the global salaries, so definitely they will be aspirations. But again, it's a lot of responsibility HR to reach that. It's basically are you binding people to purpose? Uh, I don't think many of the workers, many of the people are. It's also difficult for them. If you're moving from one company to another, when contextualize and establish relations with rapport with the cohorts, etc., is extremely difficult for them. They don't realize that. I think HR need to have dialogue with these people. See what are you doing? You got aspirations, but definitely you have to balance it out. Otherwise, you're going to lose out in the long run. That is something which is very important. My, if I were to give, there is no mantra, but I would say that there are certain things which can happen. So, Gallup says that managers, people leave managers. Managers, people leave managers. In fact, these managers training, who's responsible? HR is responsibilities. You know, if managers are not standardizing the way uh, they are coaching or developing the people. Today you got nudges, you got a lot of technology where you can standardize all this coaching and development puts. So I think if you're able to balance between and there are a lot of channels in terms of continuously engaging employees. A lot of channels in terms of maybe 2016 McKinsey came with the first employee experience platforms. Today, you could state of the art technology which are basically measuring the experience of people. So if you are able to do that and get early on signals is what makes meaning to the environment, to the workers and the people, I think we will be able to manage a lot of attrition. So people are detached from the company, they are isolated, doing the jobs, going back to the three missions too. I mean, all are doing brick on brick. Yeah, so that's
Right. So basically, I think so. As a paraphrase, it's like having a purpose, like showing people the purpose. That's the main thing. Managers have to be invested in, talent and all. While I slightly differ, it's like a co-responsibility, like a parents, like both coming together for nurturing the child is exactly the same thing. The manager as well as the HR professional or a talent partner has to come together and look after the well-being and, like seeing that the workforce is engaged. Otherwise, it's for only the CHROs to be responsible for that attrition. I think it is a very define it well. I would just add, like, attrition, while it, like 2021, the sunken cost, nobody talks about in terms of the hiring, training cost, the amount, the business impact it has at a senior level. If there's attrition, it definitely even impacts the organization strategies for some times. And sure. Uh, yeah, but let's move to the next one, which is like getting a little deeper. We spoke about talent development. We spoke about attrition. Now, third part is like end of the day, we started somewhere around that, like return on it cost. So your people budget, the cost of your compensation keeps growing, and it is higher than because like average increment in US it's like 3 to 4%, while India is always hovering 9 to 10%. Even in a difficult year as such. So the people cost is bound to go high. If you do not travel along with this number, you are bound to have attrition, and then it is a double whammy because people will leave you and you come back, you again start from the square. This is the premise. How do you ensure the productivity? Because you are hiring people, you are paying them, you want to engage them, you're trying to show the purpose, but then end of the day, how do you get the like exactly 1 metric ton of cement requiring 100 people versus 1,000 over here? Definitely the automation and things will be influencer, but let's look at this number. And I think so definitely yes, we have a problem and have, but what are your organization views? What are your views? How do you look at the productivity? Is it the white elephant in the room nobody's talking about? Yeah. So we can start with Bapuji. Like,
Yeah. So productivity is a very interesting and a very amorphous topic. I just share two of my experiences. So I was working in US company, and so it was one of the best in this industry. The name is Monsanto, so they are well known in the. All that they said is to their employees, just come and do what you like and do it the best possible way. So we'll get best out of you. That any which ways will take care of the cost. So we will give the best innovation or maybe the best output. That was one set of thoughts. And I also worked in a Japanese company, Honda. So all they said is that you just come and do what I say. Thank you. So two different approaches, and both were somewhere arriving at the same goal, probably getting best out of their talent, which essentially means maximum productivity. So maximum productivity has different definitions, and each are at different contexts of time. Uh, Maybe takes different definitions of productivity. One of the appealing for me, one always in the current role is also if maybe it is little away from the traditional thought process. If I'm doing exactly same as what I was doing, probably I'm not entitled for increment. So now it's a boardroom repeated debate, right or wrong, maybe inflation, maybe cost of living, multiple things. So if I'm repeating the same year, then probably I'm not contributing enough, or probably I'm not getting best out of myself. So that is there where I leave you with. Maybe I'll join again. So the others can also add.
Ravi, would you like to add on?
Yeah, thanks, Ritu. I think, yes, it is an amorphous subject, and I think it has different meanings for different people. Um, but I think the productivity topic is something that all organizations grapple with. We were just discussing, Karthik and I, that it's a strange thing that it happens in India, and productivity in other parts of the world is slightly different. You could do whatever 100 bags of cement with X number of people in India, and it's X minus something else in some other country. But I guess it's got a lot to do with, like you said, what the Japanese say, there's a certain style of functioning, and if that gels well with the workforce, then I think you get what you need. May or may not work in today's situation, or may not work in certain situations as well. So I think productivity is best when it is mapped to the environment, mapped to the situation, and possibly what works in Japan doesn't work in India. What works in India definitely doesn't work in the Middle East, and what works in the Middle East definitely doesn't work in the US. And I think this is something that all of us need to understand, especially global organizations. Many of us do work in global organizations, and I think is a template in the US. It's actually applied in terms of productivity in India, and I think this is a major fallacy. And I think the sooner we realize that, I think the better it is. Coming to some examples, I think some of these in terms of what even our colleague talked about, what the French do or what the Japanese do, and certain industries do, like car makers. It's always great to connect it to why you're doing it, right? So why am I working in this role? Why am I on this production line? What is the final product, and what am I going to get out of it? So if I'm able to answer these questions as an employee, then I think the productivity topic is a little easier. It's not something that I need to preach as an organization. If these aspects are clear, then employees will actually give me much better productivity. So we've seen this in different organizations. Even what I've seen is a line where we have removed the supervisors, right? And it's a very normal Japanese concept apparently, but in India, never we practice. We always think the boss on top of you to, help you get better productivity. Not so true. Uh, in fact, the people on the line finished their work an hour before the shift, and they came to us saying, "What do we do next?" Because we don't want to go and hang out somewhere because it disturbs others, and we don't want to be going out because you're going to pay us less because we left before the shift ended. So it's very interesting. It's a concept that no one ever thought about, but it's also part of the culture of that place, that people are there because they know they don't need someone telling them what to do. And then, there is a number that is given to them as a target for a daily production, for example, X number of vehicles or whatever. And then you actually reach that or even surpass that, because there's a certain pride in doing it. I also know why I'm doing it. I also know what my customer will benefit if I, do 10 more vehicles every day as compared to the regular shift. What do I get out of it as my incentive? If I'm clear about that as well, I think then this topic is actually good.
Wow.
So I'll also add one more point to the productivity. There are two phases of productivity. One is capitalistic view, maybe other is the socialistic view. So with every always inversely proportional. As we improve on productivity, especially in semi-skilled and unskilled skilled category, so those many less people will get employed. So it's a other extreme socialistic approach of productivity. So we had an experiment wherein we increased the productivity of sorting and grading people to an extent where they increased it by about 2.5x. That essentially led to a situation where we removed about 30 to 35% of the workforce, especially in tier 2 and tier 3 towns, where most of the new warehouses and logistics companies are operating. So that is the other side of the socialistic approach of the productivity.
Great.
So if I can add something on Gyan and Vigyan on this, because Bhagavad Gita says that Gyana Vigyan Tag Nakudastav Vijayendriya. So what I'm saying is, when it comes to conceptual aspects of productivity, I think it has to look at the four pillars of an employee, of HR delivery. First is selection of the employee. Second is basically aligning people, contextual skills and capabilities, and recognizing, rewarding KPIs, etc., etc. Third is the culture and environment that people can excel. That is the managerial coaching factors. And fourth aspect, I would say that is the developing people, where you got a career pipeline, you got a career ladder, etc., etc. So these different four pillars of HR delivery is good. when it comes to language of productivity, HR has a big role to play. My experience is matured organizations have already this language set in. So we go back to the first organization wherein we had been embedded, we ingrained on nine core values and six leader behaviors. Six leader behaviors are these nine core values in action done by the manager, with the manager. So one factor is there was already language was set in. On the other side, when I went back to another organization which is just a business, uh, I know that the business directors were looking for shortcuts, and I confront, because what they did is very easy for them to add a new territory, add a new distributors, and this one and bill. So I started asking in the board meeting, are you building or building? Okay, when it comes to products, are you building or building? So people are taken aback, and I had to confront, and I put in the coalition for some time. I remember in 2013 when I went back to the first meeting with managers there, they had superficially achieved their targets. They stood up. We are see now our rewards recognitions are not enough. Or this one. I told we are MNC in the making. We have been acquired by MNC in the making. I had to tell this. Where people are not settling down, I had to tell this. अभी तो पाराजी मंदिर शुरू किया है, आपको कल्पवृक्ष मिलेगा, कामधेनु मिलेगा, अमृत भी मिलेगा, बट उसके पहले विष जो आएगा मैं अकेले नहीं पीऊंगा, आप लोगों को एक ही सजा देगा. And people had to settle down, because that was the fact. Because I know we cannot have a strategy of robbing people. Many organizations do this. There are employees who are bottom 20% employees who are basically top 20% employees, and they are piggybacking. So this robbing people and paying Paul became a language which I continued. So I started measuring the productivity for each business unit and manufacturing unit wherever I worked in terms of what is threshold productivity. Break-even. So it was basically for the CFO to do it, but I had to go out and do it. And I used to maintain for hiring, I used to have P&L for each business. I don't say I cannot hire new people in this business because you're bleeding the business. You're so many people are bleeding. So believe me, when I paid this 1,000 people in a business unit, non-profitable, went into profitable to bleeding business. I had to tell them, you don't deserve anything more than 600. So next 7-8 months, I had to go into return. At the end of the day, social is important. At the end of the day, company cannot stay in the business unless you make profits. Everybody's a stakeholder. Employees are stakeholder. You got your investors stakeholders, communities stakeholders. So you cannot play the business. I mean, we got examples of new generation companies like Byju's where 2,000 crore revenue and 4,000 crore losses. I mean, it's all shocking. I think these are non-sustainable models. I think we cannot have non-sustainable. My experience is that it is the language of productivity has been seen across the organization. That is a very important responsibility HR, because line managers don't do it. And one of my experiences when I did it, I talk about internal benchmarking. I created around 7 questions to put my team in terms of mapping. There have been people who was talking about talent, average talent, committed talent. You know, the committed talent, the core of the organization are, we have to measure what makes them successful in same context. When, see, different managers have different style. Problem with organizations is that you got managers from X company coming in, Y company coming in, Z company coming in. So the aligning is not happening because you got different cultures existing in the same organization. It's so difficult to, HR has to align people. HR has to one ensure there's a one unique way of doing things. You should be champion for one unique way of doing things. What make you successful here? How do you contextualize? So that is part of your piece. So what I did is 7 questions were created and we mapped around 20% of the top employees. I got 17 critical success factors in the previous organization. That 17 critical success factors, when we rolled down, that as the training yardstick. Deliberately aligned to this, I think organization has a pivot point. That pivot point, when we develop employees, it's 20% improvement product. The average performance went up by 8 percentage points. And the growth of each of these employees grown by 52% at least delta growth. I think that was my experience. So that's the GAN they began.
Like as an HR professional, you need to know the business number as better than the CFP in
Correct.
order to challenge the things happening. And then go back and question the things. I think so. That's what I get from you. And I think so. There is interesting thing in terms of a lot of cultural thing, like what works in Japan will not work here, and what works here doesn't work there. I think so within our own country, we have like north, south, east, west, and then again say in south the four states, and then again if you go to Karnataka, North Karnataka, South Karnataka, coastal Karnataka, there's so much of a diversity with this entire workforce, and I think so that keeps the profession so interesting. We are at the very fag end, but maybe a quick one from your personal stories, anything you remember now, or you would have contributed towards talent development or creating talent pipeline. Any references from your past, any stories to share? Just a moment for each one of you.
So, the biggest experience I had was in Reliance retail. So, retail was a sunrise industry, and we hired huge number of people, and they were expected to do very, very simple things, just facing customers and probably managing the stores in the front end and maybe managing supply chain in back end. So, in 10 years, so all the people joined probably at very low, uh, maybe grown to store manager level and to general manager, area manager. So that is one of the biggest stories probably in the recent times in an industry, which created huge number of maybe upskilled people from a very entry level. So probably largest of them maybe about 8 lakh people who are in into that industry. So that was an experience where I was part of that, and it was an amazing feeling moving from minimum wages to somewhere in the range of manager level. Great satisfaction.
Like to go next?
Again, sorry to use five very important terminologies which continue to stay with my this. When it comes to talent development, uh, we need to look at resources which are aligned, integrated, strategy consistent, related, and relevant. These are five terminologies which I'll continue to work around. Experiences don't develop people on a gamut of skills. Look at relevant. What is contextualized to the organization? You know, develop people to threshold level competencies before differentiating the factors. If you go back to the talent pipeline, Ramcharan and daughter talks about this particular aspect. Every turn, it's like a turn in the pipeline. So we're talking about the work values is very important. The work values of the previous role and the work values of the new role extremely different. Then comes the time applications, where you apply time and effort. So I think this is where I work around. And then the skill. Skills, my language about skills is काम करते हुए सीखेंगे जो काम करते नहीं सीखेंगे काम नहीं कर रहा है. This is my this one. So basically, if you're talking about the average talent which is coming into companies, if you look at conceptually, it's two. Now, the enthusiastic beginner, low competencies, high commitment. If he's not transitioning from low competence to some competence and while maintaining the commitment, I think the person is not learning on the job. Now, the person is not learning on the job, then it becomes rotten talent. I think we need to continue to measure the transition of talent and capability.
Yeah, just have a
Yeah, sure. I'll keep it,
so end
I'll
with
keep it very short, Ritu. So I was with large healthcare organization before this, and we had two very large sales teams. One was focusing on doctors, and the other pharmacies. At some point, business requirements, we wanted to really look at one team and be a one-stop shop for customers. So we actually looked at the Gallup strengths for each and every person. Though these teams were large, it took a long time. By the time we were able to map the strengths, it was already COVID time. Interestingly, we actually discussed this with the entire two sets of teams in a town hall, and we said, look, we are mapping these strengths. You know your Gallup strengths by now. We want you all to work with each other. And in the end, it's going to be one team. It's COVID time. Do you all still want to do this, or should we do this later? We can park it for a year or after the pandemic. And interestingly, all the sales teams actually got back saying, no, we want to do this now. It's quite interesting. I'd love to learn what the other guys do. Maybe it's a skill that I could pick up, and maybe that could be useful after the pandemic because it's a healthcare company and these guys understand the pandemic. So very interesting time. Of course, it's a much longer story. I'll say it another day, but it is possible that you bring two sets of people together who then help each other when they go out and meet customers. And in the end, we actually ended up with a team which I assume is still there, uh, who has both capabilities and they still work as one when they go to two different customers.
Wow. So I have a small story to share, and this is from first organization. I joined there. 2005, I was just out of college, joined private TRS, and this was in Thane. Like those who are so the real estate would be more costlier than years of contribution from the chocolates, and we had to lay off people. The remaining ones were there. The union came and told us, saying that give us a target and we will beat it in terms of comparing to any other location. And this factory survived for further 6 years. That's what is productivity, and that is the union driving the productivity. So we have a lot of I think the stories amongst us and the panel and people here. We are all over here, and maybe during the dinner, let's catch up and have good talks, good shared stories, and conversation. Thank you. And, yeah, please guide me back.
Thank you.
I would like to request everyone to stay back for a moment. Requesting Mr. Bala Subramaniam, VP and Business at TeamLease, to join me on stage to present a small token of appreciation to all the participants. Mr. Janardhan Narayan Swami. Mr. Ravi Kumar. Mr. Bapuji Chikkanagappa. Miss Ritu Moitra. I would request you to stay back for a quick group photo. Bala, that's a request. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. So with that, we have come to the conclusion of the first panel discussion. I was intrigued by the interesting insights and the valuable data which I could gather from this panel discussion. One thing that stuck my mind was the Japanese project, which I cannot imagine that in India at least. There was a project where the line managers were working without the supervisor. Like, I wonder, will that be possible in India? And what will the supervisors do then? So, taking it forward, again, I would like to express our heartfelt thanks to Mr. Janardana Narayan Swami, Mr. Ravi Kumar, Mr. Bapuji Chikkanagappa, and Ms. Ritu Moitra for their participation and enriching the discussion. Thank you once again for your valuable efforts. We have Mr. Chandu Bhai with us. Is he here? Oh, yes. So he's the founder and MD. He's the founder and MD for Balaji Wafers Private Limited. Namaskar, Chandu Bhai. We welcome you to our session. He's also one of the panelists in the third session today, and he has very kindly brought wafers for all of us. So we thank you very much. It was a very sweet gesture from his side. I hope you have all enjoyed the flavors of Balaji wafers. Okay. So moving forward, let's proceed to our second panel discussion. I would like to invite Mr. Mohan Sitharam, CHRO Shadowfax, the moderator of this session, to join me on stage. Over to you, sir.
Humbled to be among you. Thank you very much. Bala and company, thanks a lot. I did negotiate. Can you hear me there? I did negotiate with the host that I'll introduce the panelists because they are unique and accomplished. And I promise I'm not reading their LinkedIn because none of them have written in their LinkedIn that they are unique. So let's start with the leader who was 25 plus years the organization he's working for. I can't think of any institution for 25 years. College, no. Job, definitely no. Marriage, my wife is not, so no. So, he wrongly puts it to say that Mohan have become a furniture. But in my mind, he's the role model who stands for tenacity, commitment, loyalty, and the value he delivers to the organization. Please.
But since you embarrassed,
Yeah, sure.
he embarrassed me by saying I've been 27. I'm 27 years. But I never did a job for more than 3 years. So I did 9, 10 jobs within the same company. It's like multiple gigs. Just that my card is the same. It's HP. That's all.
I did not embarrass. I called you the role model, sir. So, from stability to versatility, I worked for 2 decades for IT companies. I'm stuck in life. Should do the same thing again and again, but I was too late to leave. Well, then I moved to this company to see what is real, right? So here is another person. He has She's a professional who started with pharma, moved to manufacturing, worked with Bhavesh. So, and then moved to tech, and now in the alternate medicine, the Ayurveda company. Surya, thank you very much for joining us. I will not. I'll not accept my gift of gab here because I'm a Kaspos guy. I don't understand the delicacy of me, nor do I understand what a company secretary does on complaints. We are so restless. I can't stick to something which is this thing. But there's something very interesting about Sridhar. He was saying that we have German teachers. सोच रहा था यार बुचर यार ये जर्मन का नया कर सकते हैं you cut so but I don't know what it probably got delivered BMW Volkswagen German
Lucky I get some German knife for chopping.
why this is little messy. Towards the end of last year, I was on a conversation, and there was another senior lady who was with me on the WhatsApp, and I had to start the conversation somewhere, right? And dummy could not think of something new, so I asked which company do you work for. She looked at me and said, "Well, you're right, but it was little harsh." So though right, little harsh, but these are who can balance her left and right brain fantastic. She's an expert in computer. She's a great internal communication person. Yeah, I see you now. She's our head HR from Bakeries is the company. Some context, a couple of sentences on that. Bala was at office last evening and he had a request. Oh, request. Paying for all this so man. So he said, "More there are only two words from you." I asked what? Brevity and levity. So, gentlemen and good ladies, the thing is, the best and which I would have done, you can blame by because that's what he asked me to do. So, the context that we have 500 million Indians, 11 million graduates keep getting added every year. We don't know what to do with them. The data that NIPI gave me something says that less than 50% are employable. That also says that the other 50% are not as you here are. So the whole conversation is going to be what are we doing? Broadly, we will talk about aware of and think about that. Some basic you know what we are conversing, but what we don't, I did not ever tell you that I just baked in some rapid fire questions towards the end so that they are not prepared. Right? You need to see them without makeup, and I have the advantage of standing away from them, so I get- so that is the context. And before we start on that, I have to ask the first panelist might not even rag in any way. Basically, because he's an electronics engineer and belongs to the tribe of Excel whom we dislike from Cindy guys. Right? And then, and he's also now works for Reliance, who's our customer. हमारा दुकान बंद कर दिया. So I need to be nice. And the guy, he's the 730 plus in GMAT, 99.96 in exact. mobile beach में चाहते हैं, 99.96. So can you please get Mrigan to join us? Mrigan, where are you? Oh, I see you. If I spoke all right.
Don't bring the academic scores, please. Just embarrassed.
Okay, so you can play ball. Okay, so the last I got the license to do that. So the last thing is that audience, if at all we make it right on time and the volunteers can get some questions of yours, we will take that in the. If not, I promise you that the responses will be lot more cerebral after a glass. Panel will be around to respond. So on a serious note, all of you are giving dirty looks. So, you know, coming back to the problem of the context we were talking about, how do we get this You know, it is all of us will have to do something, and it has gone into that shape of saying that we have to do, but all of us will have to do something. How do we get this job ready? Are there any specifics we have done, Mash, for the best to start with? Are there anything specifics we have done to bridge the gap?
First of all, um, good evening, everyone. And when it took time for the last person to join, I thought that empty chair will be like an empty chair because sometimes you keep for the customer one empty chair, you know. So I thought it's like, he's doing that. But thank God. So maybe that's for the customer. Okay, so the question is, how do you get job ready? Okay, job readiness. So, by the way, I've been working for 33 years and 20 is in HP. Okay, it's like 3 decades. It's a lot of time, lot of white hair. You can see. But one thing is, you can never get people ready. Okay, I am a perfect example. Okay. First 5 years, I was a mechanical engineer. First 5 years, I was in the automobile industry. I moved into product management. I did jobs which hardcore computer science and electronics engineers also want to. To that extent, I've been a product manager, category manager, I've been an e-commerce head. I've been a CMO for Asia Pacific for 10 years. You name it. I've done marketing, channel, e-commerce, direct business, category. I've done Asia Pacific. Now I'm doing EMEA. So, where was I ever prepared? When I came out of college, I did mechanical engineering. Electronics industry itself is new. Okay, when I came into the industry, 4 transitions happened in the IT industry. When I joined at 96 in the IT industry, now 4 transitions happened, right? The first time we were in the PC client era. Okay, from PC client era, we moved into internet. There is a second wave. The third wave is cloud and mobile. And the fourth wave is AI. Okay. I couldn't even imagine internet when I joined. We were like AS400s and PTP11s and all in that era. We move. I'm still surviving in this company. I'm still doing job. I'm still learning AI. I'm still learning what next. So job readiness, you don't look for it at all. You only look for learning capability. That's the only thing you should look for. The person, you can take anybody if that person has the aptitude to learn, and there are many ways to check it. Okay, how that person will be naturally curious. So that is the first thing. The second thing I would say is, I'll give an example of um, a very recent example which happened by my standards, which is 2018, just about 5 years back. They gave me a job of modernization of retail of HP. So we have about 700 HP World stores in 300 cities in India. Okay? HP World, they'll only sell. Okay? Now, um, they gave me a guy who has zero experience in retail this job. I asked my MD, what happened? Why are you giving me, of all people? I have no retail experience. I've never carried a bag or anything in retail shop. Why? He says, no, but you're digital. Retail is becoming digital. So digitize our stores so that we can compete with Amazons and Flipkarts. Okay, I know there's and, and so that they have a life. Otherwise, they'll become dinosaurs. Correct? And so we did that. I handled technology, marketing, I handled analytics. I hired the best people. And one thing I found out is when I had to get the best digital marketers, the best analytics people, the best technology people, one thing I learned is all of them I'm going to pick up from the GAFA mafia. Correct? Why should they come to an 80-year-old company here? Their grand uncle would have worked in it, right? Why they should come? Why should somebody? But I was able to attract talent from all these companies, from Google and all. And one of the softest aspects I used to do, if I hire somebody very nice, is to talk about culture. And we have in spades, Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard, the place where we founded is the birthplace of the Silicon Valley, right? It's not a monument. So people come even for a lower salary, which actually happened because I can't pay like the GAFA mafia, for a lower salary because of culture. So job readiness is about the ability to learn, ability to understand the culture of the company, and then come and do this. Okay? And managing millennials is a complete session by itself. I can tell you, I manage millennials. Many of them are younger than my daughters. Okay, so I used to have the boss of somebody who was not even born when he joined. So that is really fun, manage. So these are all the things, and I think the last point I want to say is, um, you need to learn a lot before you get people. So So if you are going to manage people who are going to do AI/ML, you better know AM. Okay? You need to be an expert. If you're going to do digital marketing, if you're going to do technology transformation, you have to study it. Okay, you will read a lot. I think that readiness is not from the employee standpoint. From the employee, you should be ready. I think that's the
You know, Surya, if you can help us, the point is trying to make is that it is adaptable. It is learnability adaptable. Is that the reason people are also becoming, what a word, obsolete, redundant?
So I have a different kind of scenario at work. I deal with millennials. My organization is very, very young. We are barely 3 years old. And we are into a field which is, we are into D2C, Ayurveda, beauty and wellness sector. So there are a lot of misconceptions about Ayurveda itself. And then, sadly, there is no accredited qualification which deals with Ayurveda or beauty or cosmetology so much. I was looking for data. There are 20, 25 institutes which will have some kind of a course which touch upon cosmetology, etc. The most accredited course of Ayurveda is BAMS, which essentially is equivalent to MBBS. So when I look for people who could be job ready, it's like an ocean. Because anybody and everybody can be job ready if they are mentally, adapted for it. So it's more about the attitude. It's more about the willingness to learn. Now there comes a twist because one of my best salesperson is a mechanical engineer. He, I say he, has no connect with beauty, no connect with knowing about the products, etc. But he does extremely well for us. So I went specifically into the market that he goes in the market with him, and I realized I asked him that, how do you do it so well? How do you convince women to buy products? How do you convince women to buy Ayurveda, etc. He said, जब मैं छोटा था ना तो मैं अपनी मम्मी के साथ साड़ी खरीदने जाता था. My mother used to look at 100 saris in 10 shops and never buy anything and come back. So I have been groomed to know that, how I used to ask my mother that what would you have bought? What would you have looked at? Now, I can't put this on a job description that I'm looking for somebody who went shopping with his mother or her mother. And then my market is so wide, so open because there is no qualification criteria that I can put, right? On the other hand side, on my online space, wherein we have a lot of digital marketers, social media, influencer marketing kind of people, there I have an electronics and communication manager who manages community for us. So when I asked him, how did you come into community? He said, see, electronics engineer बनाना मेरे पापा की choice थी. Community manager बनना मेरी अपनी choice है. So I said, how do you apply your engineering knowledge into this? And he explained community in such a beautiful way that I knew that he's the right guy that we have put in place. But have I looked at a CV or a profile or a LinkedIn and decided that he can be my next community person? Probably not. So I think the job readiness here is a very, very vague term. I'm still trying to figure out that how will I reach uh, the point where I say no, this is what I'm looking for.
Thank you. Just to ensure, sorry for that. So we'll come from Brigant to you because he seems to be saying something. So Brigant, the question to you is that the point which Surya was talking is willingness to learn. From the organization front, willingness to experiment. You can't find, but you take a bet. My lady is an aeronautics engineer. So you take, who do you help us? Reliance does that all the time. So,
So I like to give answers from three experiences I had, Table and Conclave. So what I've observed that diversity of career profiles are not increasing, is not increasing over a period of time. What I mean to say is, if someone is in procurement, supply chain, finance, or HR, they like to remain in one particular industry, one particular category only. And there is lot of demand that, okay, I need a person who has done only in one particular industry, maybe FMCG slash retail, only in procurement in this particular domain. What problem it is creating is, once you have a diverse profile, you are automatically learning agility and resilience. Both of these traits go up, which has a direct impact on job readiness, because you don't get a ready candidate. You get a candidate maybe 50% functional ready, and the rest of the things you take bet based on the attitude of the guy, whether he'll ready to go extra mile in terms of learning. So the bottom line is, diversity of career profiles is not going up. It's the food for thought for any talent management practice holder and for us, the HR leaders. Another point which is linked with this is transferable skills. Okay, there are transferable skills from one function to another function, which somehow we don't pay attention to. It could be negotiation skills. It could be. I'll give you some examples. Simple skills which are agnostic to a particular domain, and they need some kind of a science how we develop those skills, because the job descriptions itself are evolving. We don't know if a particular job is going to be what after 1 2 years. We're just making some hypothesis, and we're sometimes shooting in the dark. To be honest, brutally honest, we don't know how this job will be. AI is there and multiple other things. So to focus on transferable skills become automatically important to have the job readiness.
Super. Mathari, okay. So he brought up. He brought up one key, but the fungible skill, right? You can put it there. And the second thing is talking about ever evolving. Your shirt, all different every day. So how do you have any examples of these scenarios, and how as an organization we see?
So I'll cover this and I'll cover a little because I got sort of interested in some of the communication that we've been having so far. So one thing I think job readiness becomes important at two different levels, right? One, there is a blue collar worker. If he doesn't know how to do a certain job, right, he can't do that job. He could potentially even cut his finger, right? So job readiness is a must in some areas. And over there, I think training, pre-assessment of things become extremely important. At the same time, when it comes to a workplace where there are a lot of gray cells, in an area of that sort, I think a good mix is important. Now I'm getting to your question, right? A good mix is important over there, and it's important that we have people who are domain experts, who know the domain, and they know exactly क्या fabric बन रहा है. They are doctors. They know exactly what is the problem like. So you require those expertise. And over there, you know, you can't try to mix anything. Wo base job level is required. Those courses are required. But there are many areas where, which is trainable. Over there, I think you decide of the five requirements, which are the two requirements with the must, and the rest can be trained. Like, for example, one of the experiments I did 5 years ago was I got somebody from a premier institute and put him 0 years of experience, put him as a regional manager for South India, yeah, in Middle East, right? And then he was, it was very surprising. There were years with, folks with 10 years experience, 12 years experience coming and questioning me, ki, what is this? Are you out of your mind? Why would you make something like this? And I said, let's try it out. Smart guy. And what I realized is he challenged everybody else, and the overall team's skill went up at each notch. So, job readiness is a mix of what are the two important things that is required right now, not only at that individual JD level, but at a team level, to scale up the whole. I think that becomes an important definition of job. And maybe the third thing that I would want to, in the interest of the high level topic, right? I really urge, and this is my request. Indian government actually does a lot of initiatives, right? We spoke about AOP in the earlier panel as well, and people and business are same thing. Uh, we own over, right? Finally, we do contribute to business by making sure that overheads are managed. So every time there are increments, even if we are giving 15%, the people cost is increasing. And that's a magic that HR professionals can make, right? Rather, people cost can even go low. Now, this can happen by skilling right and using some of the benefits that Government of India gives. There is a NEEM scheme, there is an apprenticeship program. There are various of these programs that I would think that HR professionals need to see how these can be taken advantage of in business context and used to skill India, because I think India has amazing talent. It's a demand and supply game, so we can always keep the P&L doing well for the company, and we can always make sure that you know, if we put a process focus, I call it a CPA. If we focus on competency, passion, and alignment, uh, in that case, we can always make sure that people get job ready at least 8%.
Thank you. Sorry, we kept you at the head. Now, why do you cover? Why And the second thing is this whole thing of from the organization went on with the region.
Yeah. So before I come to this conference, I was just wondering, like, am I in the right place? Because being a company secretary, being a director, being a more of a finance or legal background, I was wondering why was I invited. But then I need to say that maybe I thought, okay, I can learn a skill or two by being among some HR experts besides me. So I would like to add something specific because it's more effective that I say something, a story about my company rather than talking something on a theoretical base. So it's a proud moment for me to say that when you spoke about the German butcher master, right? So when we started off the company at 12 years back, there's so many people, right? So unique manufacturing unique skill sets required, right? So when we got a German butcher master and we say, okay, you get unskilled workers, yeah, this is what you get here, and you have to train them, make them job ready, and ensure that they follow the same systems which you follow in otherwise in Europe or any other continent. To our surprise, as on today, right? So these same guys who were not job ready, who were being doubted for when they came for an interview at that time, are leading the team, are handling the same systems what was told to them by the European gentleman. And we don't even have him coming visiting on a regular basis. We say also on the cost of travel. So these guys, right, we are surprised they are literally producing the stuff which goes to pan India. And also we are looking into exports. So the leap of faith, the belief system, right? When I had them, I'm not from an HR background, right? But as a CEO or as a management, what should we do? Like we look at the growth engine, right? The various growth engines we have, and how do I do how do I achieve the growth? I need to find people. I need to find people who fit into the various growth engine. And the third point, make them accountable, right? So though I'm not something directly involved, my HR manager will take care more than me. But as a CEO, as a management, I cannot ignore the fact that people are the foremost and the end for the success of any organization. So it's not about just no founder, no management can ignore the people of the company, right? It is more to do like you have various growth engine, you have a wrong person to fit in, then right, you are going to fail. So coming to the faith, the leap of faith, right? So it's a belief system. The culture which comes to the companies comes from the top. The founder dictates the culture in the company. And if you have a culture in putting a belief system, culture of learning, unskill, reskill, right? This is the culture which the lower end staff look at, and that is what they will practice. So if the founder or if the management gives that belief, shares that confidence in them that okay, we are willing to have a bet on you, right? So that which we had 12 years back is living the results as on today. So this is something peculiar to what we do, because it's a unique system. It's something which we not thought of, and we have achieved it. So it's the same thing like the focus today being on the skill development. So the job readiness, it is, yes, to some extent, yeah, there's a sort of a resume which comes into the picture for us to shortlist, but that's not the end. Anyone who has the right attitude, who is willing to learn, I think you can put your bets on him, put your beliefs on him, and I think they will drive your company.
100%. 100%. Very, very, very powerful. Thanks for joining us. You know, I just had one line. When I joined this logistics company, I was told it's not meant for women. The first thing which I was told. Logistics is not made for women. And we have sheds which we call sort centers away from the city. Women can't work. I said, who am I to decide that? It's for the woman to decide. I went and hired only girls from management schools for HR. I told them that this is what the system says that you are not ready. If you think you are ready, go do it. All my sort centers across the country today are managed by. They do it. Just told them that you are job ready. Ready. We believe that you are ready. And if you think you are ready, here is your game. The next topic, and let's start from Surya. Uh, you know, this is the this is what we started with Surya. There is so much of all of it is for higher education institute, it's for the government body, organization. It's so much for all of us to do on this concept of how do we make enhance the skill count. It's not the number of people, but how uh, you some light.
So we realized this very early on. Since we are Ayurveda, we have to have the expertise. We have to kind of, create that specialized version of ours into every person that belongs to our organization. So yeah. So it happened that when we joined this organization about a year back, we were discussing about the org design, how we were going to look at this entire organization, and we realized that we need specialists because that's where our strength is going to be. So we hired doctors who were Ayurveda specialists, and we created a panel of doctors, the board of doctors, who consult with us on various topics which are specialized in nature. And we realized that while consumer is getting a lot of information, a lot of knowledge about Ayurveda through our panel of specialists, how are we going to translate into for our internal populations? So we have created multiple modules, and then we hired regional training managers who were effectively trained by teaching schools to carry the knowledge forward. And then eventually we decided that we will create a very robust uh, you know module programs which everybody who joins the organization has to go through to Ayurveda to know about the beauty products, how this entire thing works. While we were teaching, not teaching, while we were, making them aware of this part, we realized that the social aspect becomes equally important. How the young people, how do you deal with rejections? How do you handle a difficult situation? How do you in a space startup environment, how to we realized that a lot of people were not following healthy habits, so they were falling sick often. They were calling it every Monday morning we will have everybody writing in that will be joining that kind of scenario. So how do you focus on the holistic for people? Because as I said, deal with kids 20, 23, 24 years old. So now, as part of that, we changed our outsourcing partner to where they have focus on the learnings for the off-road resources also. So we are looking at upskilling our entire population, not only on the expertise part of it, but also softer aspects we can learn and grow with organization.
Superb. That HP is a role model. The world corporations are also HP. So you have some specifics.
So, for specifically about upskilling, okay, I think you put it into three parts, right? What is uh, higher education institutions doing? In our case, mostly engineering and MBA. What is government doing, and what is the employer, the company itself is doing? So, I think first from higher engineering institutions, they're doing a lot. If I if I just look at any modules, especially in computer science, very advanced. They teach AI, all the things, if you're in a from a good institute, you generally get that. And if you see MBA, by the way, I teach at a school. Okay, I'm a professor of practice. A complete module I do for 22 hours. I teach e-commerce. So I'm a good example of somebody teaching school e-commerce. And likewise, somebody who's doing finance, somebody who's doing HR, they're all practicing people. So that's the best thing to do, right? The students at the age 21 to 25, they're exposed to masters of their craft. So that is the first thing, HAs do. Now, for government, UGC changed the rule about 2 years back. They introduced this concept of professor of practice. Earlier, you needed to teach and to institution. Now, if you have 10 years of relevant experience, like I have 10 years of e-commerce experience, which makes me an e-commerce specialist. So I can teach in any university. That's a great government is doing that, apart from doing many other trainings. The last is in company. Okay, in company we do in HP. As I said, we made audio oscillators. From there we have come a long way, I would say. So many companies, not just HP, you take many companies. Samsung started like that into something, they went into something. So how do they morph? It's because of they have a so we have a very strong mentor-mentee program in HP. Meant a lot of to 8 to 10 people, senior managers in here. The funny part is I learn a lot from the mentees, okay, as much as the mentors. I think it is both way, right? If we keep that osmosis process between passing some knowledge, what we call as institutional knowledge. Whenever I say institutional knowledge, I'm reminded of Shashank Redemption, guy in jail for so long. And say, how do you know, food is going to be served? Is the institution? Sometimes that's why a joke will be saying, next to the furniture in HP, I'm being there. I got all this institutional knowledge. So sometimes this institutional knowledge helps to pass it on. And the new people.
Either take
See, in our company, like if I have to bring, like as we deal with food, right? It's very important for us to maintain the hygiene part of it. Overall, about that, the best learning which I have given to my staff or to my team is to lead by example. If I want them to do something, I would just show them, okay, this is what you have to do. Like if I want them to maintain the cleanliness, okay, this is what I'm following. You have to follow. It comes from the top again. But being in a food industry, something very specifically, we have our in-house quality team has a robust training mechanism taken place, and we are also FSSC 22,000 certified. They have their strict SOPs which need to be followed, as simple as some culinary skills and even on the vocal skills. And We have like multiple retail shops. We had to teach them on a personality development, like how to face the consumer, what kind of questions need to be asked. So it's an ongoing activity without any end. It's something I would say goes on a real time basis, on an everyday standard basis, that what needs to be done for each of the team members. But the best and the easiest thing which we do is the top management telling them, okay, this is what we have done. Yes, you have to follow it. And to be a honest answer to your question, for all these years we have noticed that they just preach like what they see, right? They just see what is happening in the top and they just follow that. And that's again a matter of something which we have learned by ourselves also, that if I have to dictate something to my lower ups, then yes, first I have to show like what needs to be done. So in our company, it's like an ongoing activity, I would say. There is no end for learning, and it is something which our HR team, we have a quality team, we have in-house veterinarian who takes care of it. And yes, as being a European company, it is something which we have brought in a set of standards to an Indian employee set of around 125 people. And we are happy to see that they have learned in this journey and they are continuing to learn as well. Yeah.
Samantha, uh, while you cover, just tell me, do you go to the colleges, teach them, how is the campus connect?
Um, well, we do go to colleges and teach them, but it is more in terms of the fashion industry, more in lifts, more in areas that matter to us. And similarly, I think it was more extensive in my span in Medibadi, where I think we would connect with a lot of technology colleges. So be it BITS Pilani, be it the IITs, having a lot of connect over there. So yes, to that is yes, I think the campus to finally it is a pyramid that we are operating, right? So we do require people to join us at the end of and we do want to keep our pyramid as huge as possible at the bottom. And that can be possible only if we are able to attract talent, and talent who are not only ready based on campus, talent whom we are ready to invest on in training them and hoping that we retain them for 11 months. Right? So I think that's the work that goes in over there. But interestingly, because I was, I get very involved in the conversation. So my mind starts thinking as I'm listening to each one of you. And one of the things that I thought is, this job readiness is even important at the CXO level. Okay. And one of the things, I went back my memory lane, and last August, one of the things that we did based on the initiation by my CEO was we said we need to have a culture workshop. Okay. And we were very, very specific. कि मीटिंग में करना क्या होता है as simple as that. You come to a meeting, how do you make a meeting outcome driven? How does everybody come on the same page before the meeting? Because each one of us come from our respective department perspective, and then we are talking for 2 hours and going out, right? Positive happens everywhere, right? So we said, okay, let's target some of these, and a job readiness in terms of learning can happen in such small ignored spaces as well, which I think are extremely crucial because you have experts. You have the best in industry sitting in the team. The only thing is they're individuals and not a team, right? So how do you keep making these individuals a team, not only at the top level, but at every layer below that? I think becomes very, very interesting. And one another interesting thing that we did is there's a lot of jnana everywhere. It's available, and sometimes available at 399. Okay, you just have to go to Amazon and buy it. Now, what's important is you need to know what to buy, right? And what you align with. So, and this comes top down because it doesn't matter what each one of us differently align with. What matters is what the leader aligns with, right? How the leader is thinking about it. So we got the leader to select a book that he aligns most with. And we gave this book to all the managers in the company. And then we said, you read this book and come to this training session. And the training was about the book. So we had no concepts beyond the book. So there are different phases of how people learn, right? Learn because of reading, some learn because of listening, some learn because of seeing. We did all of that. And I think that is how you get people job ready as well. So,
Sure. You need to cover this aspect. How we do it. All of us together.
So, in my view, government institutions, high education institutions, they are going to provide just a launch pad for anyone, which is just a starting point that which gives you entry to corporate or entrepreneurship at some level in some job or something around it. It's just a ticket. Now, coming to your question, are we doing enough? The entire skill set building or something beyond that needs to be, as she was mentioning, which is new era kind of a learning. A book is used to build a culture. Lot of information is available. Let's suppose you need to understand Python, learn Python in 2 days, and write a code. Lot of information is available online and all. The role of the corporates needs to be to provide these resources. E-learning is one way, but more innovative way of teaching, which are here and now, short term, and very disruptive and scattered. Scattered way of learning and picking something which is makes sense, maybe the way forward. So yes, we are doing to some extent, but institutions will only be launch pads, but corporates have to keep on adapting to new ways of learning.
Oh, there is one example I am obligated to share. So, uh, we have been technology companies going to the colleges. We have set labs. We have taught there. All that is done. We had to do something else in the logistics company. We figured out a college, Bombay, NITE. If you're gone there, it's called now IIM Bombay. IIM Bomb, they call it, right? So we did not know what do we do different. We said instead of us coming and teaching in your college, why don't all your come and work with us for it? We are teaching supply chain management. Figure it out how to start. So the guys loved it. I am Bombay top 7 professor came and worked in our thought center for a day. And we wrote a white paper what they learned in real terms, building some relationship with the college. Ultimately, to hire from there, right? So that's what we are. Unfortunately, we are not moving to the last topic. But I have some questions for you, which I told you that I'll not let you know what they are. So I'll start. Nash is giving me the look. So start with Mrigag. If you could swap your role with anyone, who would it be? One word. And why? One.
You're talking about options within the organization, correct? In terms of any other function.
I didn't tell you anything. I told you if you want to swap your role.
CEO of the company.
Savatha, same question.
I actually can swap with anybody.
Oh, really? They have a lot of budget. Nash, can I ask you a question? If this stage, instead of expecting you to wanted you to do karaoke, which song do you think you would have sung? One. One.
Can do. What language? I have actually, when Subramaniam passed away, I did a 20 song tribute in 4 languages. So I don't know whether he knew that and he asked me to. So, I mean, I can sing in Tamil, it's bad, but I I did in Kannada, I did in Telugu.
Which is the song you would have picked, sir?
So Kadal Bhairavi.
Very good.
I wouldn't have turned up for this conference and you told me to. Really bad at it. So that I think you got your answer.
Surya, if your life would have been a movie, what genre it would have been?
I'm not into movies at all, so
But
I
it's team horror movie though.
think
Samantha,
It would have been a comedy movie.
nice. What is the strangest thing on your what is the strangest thing? For example, I tell my team I'm a cool guy. And this is rapid fire. Mriga, you. GMAT 7:30. What is the strangest thing on your desk or something you say? What is the strangest thing? This is without making.
I am available.
Very nice. Very nice. Um, now, whom did I miss? Okay, I come back to you, Nash, again. What is your go-to excuse when you?
Go to excuse.
Ah,
I'm in think time, some serious thinking, strategy or something.
I'm into meditation.
okay, since it's all about skill, if you want to learn magically a skill, what would it be? Samantha?
I would want to ace finance.
Finance is a skill.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, yeah, how to do accounting, how to to understand things faster than how my CFO does. Maybe I would want to do that.
You want to take it?
the same thing. So I was consistent C grader in finance. So if I have to learn a skill, it has to be
Stand-up comedy. That's a great, super. Anyway, this is the question. You don't need to answer. You can pass. Wala didn't pay me for this. So if you have to engage team lead for your new project, will you do it? Yes or no? You can pass
already
through.
did it.
You already did. Anyone else? Sridhar?
I prefer seeing the CEO's face. What would he say?
You can pass. Uh, Thank you. We attempted whatever we could. We have just concluded it on time for you. Thank you very much.
But Mohan, I should say one thing. You have successfully embarrassed everybody, every speaker, including the CEO, and you did an awesome job to keep it really, really lively. Yeah, round of applause for him.
Yeah, so I would just request everyone to stay back for a moment, requesting Mr. Karthik Narayan to join me on stage to present the small token of appreciation. Mr. Nash Narsimhan. Mr. Mohan Sitaram. Ms. Samata Balal. Ms. Surya Omar. Mr. Mrigang S. Agarwal. Mr. Sridhar Gopalan. Kindly stay back for a quick group photo. Bala, I would request you to join them on stage. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much, Mr. Mohan Sitaram. I think you did an amazing job and you kept us all very much engaged in the session. Thank you very much. So, with that, the second panel discussion comes to an end. And one thing which I take from this session is that culture, adaptability, and agility are the three factors that keep the talent intact. And one thing which again struck my mind is the question Rigank mentioned that diversity is not going up. So, well, I'll take this up separately in the dinner time. I just wanted to say, because the JD the JD says it all, you know. It already says 2-3 years of relevant finance experience, 2-3 years of relevant e-commerce experience. I'll take it up later. So, we would like to extend our genuine appreciation to each of our esteemed panelists for their diverse perspectives. Thank you once again, Mr. Nash Narsimhan, Ms. Samata Bhatt, Ms. Surya Umar, Mr. Mrigank S. Agarwal, Mr. Sridhar Gopalan, and Mr. Mohan. Thank you very much. We are now at our final session, looking ahead to discuss changing consumer behavior and sustaining business for today and the next 10 years. I would now like to welcome Mr. Karthik Narayan, CEO of TeamLease, who will be moderating this session along with our panelist, Mr. Chandubhai Virani, founder and managing director, Balaji Wafers Private Limited, and Mr. Balaji Iyengar, founder and founding member and CFO of Next Year. I would request you all to join me. I now hand over the session to Mr. Karthik.
I think that was really explanating. Both the sessions. Thanks, Sidhu, and thanks, Mohan. I can't see him there. Made my job tougher though to follow an outdoor. Let me. I mean, this is a different session. The last one of it, but I think very important. From a business perspective, because we have in front of us, two founders, in that sense, and therefore their views on people and exactly what we're going to do with respect to being able to lead businesses in the next 10 years and changes that they have seen are going to be important perspectives that we tend to kind of run. But before everything else, let me give a quick introduction to both of them. Mr. Chandubhai Virani, he's come all the way from Rajkot. He's the owner of Balaji Wafers, which is 5,000 crore company, India's foremost brand in potato wafers, cookies and snacks. He's an inspiration to many budding entrepreneurs in the country whose story full struggle for first business since 1974. Right? Today, Balaji is a household name all across Western India. Amongst many things, he's been awarded a leading organization by National Geographic Channel featured Balaji Wafers in their prestigious program, Super Fat. And then we have another Balaji, Mr. Balaji Iyengar, currently serves as CFO at Unext, a qualified chartered accountant. Balaji has been driving and strengthening the finance functions at Unext since Jan 2021. In his career spanning over 2 decades, he has been instrumental in aiding organizations in improving profitability, managing anticipated risks. His work closely private and the conversation with him, he's worked across a range of businesses, including the stem cell business. That's quite interesting to see what is that we can pick up from you, as we speak today. Right? चंदू भाई सबसे पहले आपसे मैं शुरुआत करूंगा आपके अनुभव में अभी मतलब एंटरप्रेन्योर में आप देख रहे हैं कि कितना सारा चेंज हो रहा है राइट आज VC फंडिंग अवेलेबल है आपने जब 1974 में आपने जब शुरुआत किया उस समय से अब इस समय में आप देखते हैं जहाँ पे शुरुआत किया जा सकता है फंड की अवेलेबिलिटी है इंफॉर्मेशन आप क्या देखते हो उस समय और इस समय
उस समय में पैशन ज्यादा थी को ऑप्शन नहीं थे उनको अपेक्षा नहीं थी आज के समय में अपेक्षा बढ़ गई है पैशन कम हो गया है जैसी ज्यादा फर्क है बिजनेस में पैशन चाहिए समझ चाहिए पैशन तो समझ आएगी तभी अच्छा बनेगा ये कम है मेरे हिसाब से आप
जब आपने अपने लोगों का चुनाव किया, उस वक़्त बिज़नेस चालू करते समय आप गाँव से छोटे शहर में, छोटे शहर से पूरा वेस्ट इंडिया में आपने पूरा अपना बिज़नेस सेटअप किया। उस वक़्त पे आपने क्या सोचकर अपनी टीम बनाई?
नहीं, टीम नहीं बनाई, पहले तो वो अकाल पड़ा, मुसीबत आई, मुसीबत से हम वहाँ से माइग्रेट किया, गाँव से ये राजकोट आया। मेरा गोल था मेरे को यहाँ से उसी टाइम एस्टोन सिनेमा एक सिनेमा थिएटर उसमें उद्घाटन हुआ, इसमें मेरे को कैंटीन में मेरे उधर तो हेड थे, उसमें नौकरी मिली, अच्छा काम किया, तो वही एक पकड़ के रखा, तो पैसा अपेक्षा कम, तो 20 साल तक पकड़ के 20 साल में हमने कंज्यूमर 7 साल में बेचा, फिर हमने घर में बना के बाइक लेके बाजार में बेचा। इसमें बनाया तो क्या किया, आलू भी परचेज किया, जगह के आदमी नहीं है तो टाइम, तो मैंने पैशन से सारी समझ आ गई 20 साल। 20 सालों में मेरे पास प्लेटफॉर्म समझ का था, पैसा नहीं था, ना मेरे पास पैसा था, ना कोई मेरे को देने वाला था। तो मैंने खुद किया, इससे आदत पड़ी कि सपोर्ट से आदमी अपाइस हो जाता है, बिना सपोर्ट काम करने, किसी की हेल्प नहीं लेनी, हमको हेल्प बनानी है। तो मैंने क्या किया, मैंने डीलर बनाया, मैंने सप्लायर बनाया, तो सारी हमारे पास जो प्रोसेस लाइनें हैं, तो इसमें काफ़ी हमारा टच, आप कोई भी चीज़ खाओगे और हमारी मैंने यहाँ लाया भी हूँ मैं, थोड़ा डिफरेंस लगेगा आपको। मैं कंज्यूमर को समझा, कंज्यूमर को क्या चाहिए। मैं तो ये समझता हूँ कि 80% कंज्यूमर को भी समझ नहीं है, तो फिर भी इससे भी हमको ज़्यादा समझ होनी चाहिए, तो समझ कैसे आई? आज मेरे को 49 ईयर्स हो गए, आज तक मैंने इससे अलावा कोई बिज़नेस ही नहीं, तो मैं कर नहीं सकता कि भई कोई काफ़ी लोगों ने बोला कि इसमें अनसेफ्ट रहेंगे, जीवन से आज तक सेफ्टी नहीं हुआ, अनसेफ्ट नहीं। भगवान ने हमको इंसान बनाया, इंसान से कौन बड़ा सेफ है? फिर भी हम अनसेफ अनसेफ होके दुखी होते हैं। हम पहले से सुखी हैं, पहले से ना गरीब है, ना गरीब है, अमीर है, हम एक इंसान है। इंसान बन के दूसरों को विश्वास दिलाए और इंसान की एक बड़ी फौज खड़ी की। आज हमारे साथ लाखों करोड़ों लोग खड़े हैं। मेरे पास 15 बड़े द्वारा 2000 डीलरों को डीलर करते हैं 18 राज्यों में, और ये डीलर है तो एक-एक दुकान बेचते हैं, छोटा डीलर है, हाई रिक्शा है, बड़ा डीलर है, ग्रेड रिक्शा है, वो 40 लाख दुकानों को बेचते हैं, वहाँ करोड़ों कंज्यूमर खरीदते हैं। 74 से 82 तक ये 2 कैंटीन में बिकता था, आज 40 लाख दुकानों में बिकता है। ना किसी को टारगेट है, ना किसी को स्कीम है, ना किसी को सेल की बातें हैं। एक अनोखी में मेंटालिटी पे एक इंसानियत के आधार पे एक विश्वास बनाया। कोई भी छोटे से छोटा वर्कर सैटिस्फाई कि हम चंदू भाई को बात करें तो सॉल्यूशन आ जाए। एक कोई भी छोटे से छोटा सप्लायर है, चंदू भाई से बात करें तो हमारा प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व हो जाएगा। हमने एक लोगों को सैटिस्फाई करने की कोशिश की। मेरे मेरे साथ यहाँ सेठा जी बैठे हैं, वो कॉर्पोरेट कंपनी में से आए थे। मेरे को क्या काम करना है? मेरे को तू क्या करेगा वो मैं देखूँ। अभी ये बैठे हैं सेठा जी। तो हम एम्प्लॉय को फ्रीडम देते हैं, हम सारे लोगों को फ्रीडम देते हैं। तो एक विश्वास में मैं छोटी बात कहूँ, मैं एक फैक्ट्री में जाता हूँ, मैं चाय नहीं मिलती। एक चाय वाला छोटा जो कर्मचारी है, मेरा टाइम से चाय दे देता है। तो बात कहने की ये है कि जिम्मेदारी मैंने उसके ऊपर ठोक दी, बिना ऑर्डर दिए। तो ना किसी प्रकार के फिर भी मैं राजकोट से मेरे जन्म से पहले है उससे ज़्यादा टैक्स पेयर हूँ। पूरे गुजरात में टैक्स नमकीन सबसे ज़्यादा टैक्स पेयर हूँ। पूरे इंडिया में नंबर 1 ग्रोथ चलने वाली बालाजी है। और EBITDA भी सबसे नमकीन सारी नमकीन इंडिया की कंपनी में हमारा EBITDA अच्छा है। तो एक अनोखा बिज़नेस किया, एक प्रैक्टिकल आदमी बना, कोई प्रोफेशनल, मैं कोई ईगो वाला आदमी नहीं। मेरे को सबसे बड़ा रिस्पेक्ट मिलता है तो करोड़ों लोगों को। उससे मिले इंसान
Balaji, you, you've heard Chandubai speak now.
I think when I came here just now and I was speaking to my wife, they invited me for a panel discussion HR. Then I sit with Mr. Chandubai Virani. She just said all the best. So thanks Karthik, for the invite. I was really surprised honestly when I saw these team supply chain, what it means. So I think its sessions so far have been extremely interesting for me. I see HR as treasury, guys. Actually, these are the people actually invest. Right? It's, I've spent a lot of time in treasury, but the most important part is to get the people right. I think all the sessions so far are interesting. So much fun
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah, I think part of what we did was also to make sure saying there is no one stream of thought. So there is a founder businessman, type personality. There are people from company secretary, compliance background, finance, and so on and so forth. So that we look at the same problem from different perspectives. Sometimes you get outed with a single perspective.
Yeah.
I think that helped. I think amongst many things to settle discussions like really at the same time, in this day and age, you hear about different concepts, in the current generation. One of them, which is largely prevalent over the last few years, was quiet quitting, right? Quiet quitting. So you end up coming and you work. So basically, quiet quitting. If you heard saying, "Listen, I get paid 100 rupees, I'll work exactly for 100 rupees." At one point in time, there was a lot of concept of used to reinforce saying individuals will go disproportionately beyond what they're being asked of. In fact, to that particular instance, I said, I trust them, I give them autonomy, they do what they do. What is it that we need to do now in a professional corporate environment even to be able to attract such people? We spoke about how the employer-employee social contract in some sense is broken. One is, for an entrepreneur to set up a business like this. But now when you see, employees joining, there seems to be an arm's length difference with respect to how they kind of come inside a corporation. I'm not saying for all, but for many. Is there something fundamentally which has changed, or are we being too cynical and we need to adapt to how things happen?
I think the last 2 weeks, especially my work in Manipal has been for about maybe 13 or 14 incubated. I think the big change which I see personally is that we did produce entrepreneurs in the company, while human nature we are entrepreneurs, right? All of us. Some of them went down to $1 billion. Three of them who worked with us went down to become $1 billion companies, like Tasket, Zerodha. They're examples of this. And these were essentially people 20 years back had the same spirit. I think the big difference we see is the opportunities they have. Interestingly, I was spending time with some young engineers last week in a restaurant. They knew that I come from the family office. I looked at investments and things like that. There is so much they knew. There are things which I never knew. When I looked at it, I could not see it. They knew it. And that's inspirational, actually. I think we spoke about guys being sceneries. That's what we speak about. I think they're very aspirational. They're seeing all the people talking valuations, IRR. I think they're aspirational. ambition, they want to grow and they want to grow fast. To that extent, I think that's the big change. And there are few of them who are aspirational, want to make it big. They were happy when you are happy actually continuing and organization build career. It's very rare people of Mr. Virani to build companies from scratch. Unbelievable. But it's more happening now than ever before. I just came from a NETAP. I think most of these guys are getting it right in terms of business. They know what's done to grow the business. Interestingly, in all discussions I see, there are differences between business from running a company. They are not getting the governance part right. So that's the part which needs to be done. Otherwise, I think so opportunities in terms of things which happen in the last, the opportunities are very large. It's just that you pick up some ideas and there are some who have the passion to get it through. So I think this has been my experience of personal as well as external. Things have changed completely in the last 20 years.
Got it. चलो एक एक विषय पर जिसमें उन्होंने टिप्पणी की है कि अभी जो नौजवान है वो बहुत ज्यादा एस्पिरेशनल है, ठीक है? तो उस अगर उस मायने से आप देखें तो पहले शायद 1974 में जब आपने बिजनेस चालू किया तो शायद 10 लोग आपके साथ जुड़ गए, तो वो शायद आपके साथ काफी ऑफकोर्स आपने उनको बहुत अच्छे तरीके से ट्रीट किया, आपने उनको ऑटोनॉमी दी, वो रहे। बट अब क्या हम ये अपेक्षा कर सकते हैं कि जो ज्वाइन करते हैं उन नौजवानों में काफी ज्यादा एस्पिरेशन है? कोई भी कंपनी में अभी 2 से 3 साल 2 से 3 साल भी बहुत ज्यादा वक्त है। 6 महीने में 1 साल में उनका एस्पिरेशन है कि वो कोई और नौकरी कर ले।
हमारे हमारे यहाँ जनरेशन में अलग बात है। हमने पहले से न्यू जनरेशन को ऐसे किया, जिम्मेदारी देते गए। तो आज वो एकदम फास्ट जिम्मेदारी उठा ली। आप नहीं मानोगे, मेरा छोटा ब्रदर से उसका लड़का लंदन और अमेरिका पढ़ के आया, तो मैंने बोला ये नहीं कर सकेगा हमारा बिजनेस। वो संभाल लिया इसने। कहाँ? यूपी में। यूपी में 15 बार मैंने उसको बोला कि वहाँ से काफ़ी मिनिस्टर का फ़ोन आ रहा है। नहीं पापा मैं आपको बताऊँ, तो मेरा फिर लास्ट में बोल दिया यहाँ सारे घर-घर में राजकीय आदमी, आप फ़ोन करना बंद कर दो, कर लेंगे। पूरी फैक्ट्री किसी को पूछे बिना ये लड़के कर दी। तो ये है न्यू जनरेशन में फ़र्क है। लेकिन हम कैसे हैं इसके ऊपर आधार। बेटा, बेटा करते रहेंगे, बेटा कभी बड़ा नहीं होगा। तो न्यू जनरेशन के ऊपर फ़र्क होना चाहिए। फ़र्क होता है हमारे उसमें। बेटा तुमको नहीं मालूम है, नहीं मालूम है। ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए। हम करेंगे उसको गलतियाँ से डाँटना नहीं है, तभी बेटे बाप बनेंगे। तो फ़र्क तो है आज की जनरेशन में, क्योंकि इसके फास्ट समझ जाते हैं। हमारे समय में टेक्नोलॉजी नहीं थी, हम तवे में परोठे बनाते थे। आज आप गाठिया, पीनट भुजिया, इसमें पीएलसी कंट्रोल में पानी, मसाला सब पीएलसी कंट्रोल का काम है। तो ये सारी समझ उसको है, मेरे को इतनी नहीं है। तो ये टेक्नोलॉजी से तो मैं ये बोलूँगा कि समय के साथ जो चलेगा, वो समय उसको साथ ले जाएगा, तो समय के साथ कौन चलेगा? हम नहीं चल सकते, न्यू जनरेशन चल सकते हैं। बात ये है कि हमारे पास प्रैक्टिकल बात है, उसके पास प्रोफेशनल बात है। हम दिल से बात कर सकते हैं, दिमाग से तो शक्ति बढ़ गई ना। तो फ़र्क होता है, अपेक्षा एक-दूसरे से नहीं करनी चाहिए, अपेक्षा छोड़ दो। वो है हम हैं, कोई कंपैरिज़न नहीं होता। ये आप पूछेंगे तो बात करता है। बाकी तो आज की समझ में नो डाउट है, तो समझ जाते हैं फटाफट। तो ये तो न्यू जनरेशन के बिना आगे समय बढ़ ही नहीं।
बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग पॉइंट है। बालाजी, one of the points he made is, and which I think this panel also is about, treating people with responsibility, right? But you see two aspects of it. One, you see with the pace at which business is increasing, people say, listen, get me the same person with the same background, if it's a fresh hire, of course. And even internally within companies, there is a certain kind of silos. People are not allowed to move different functions, except for very few businesses that few HR kind of spoke about, right? Where do we think we're failing? I see this a lot more in the Western world, where there is a lot more belief in fungibility itself, that a person essentially can do more than one job. He, of course, spoke about saying if you give responsibility, then measure up to the
Change a little bit. I think worked on. I think they made me the head of clinical accountant. Comes from the finance background. There's stability in the team compared to what it is today. That extreme, it's very common. Even at that time, it was very common in Europe and US to have functional leaders, HR guys. Clinical. I'm not talking about services companies, finance companies. I think it's becoming a little more common than it was ever before. Within organizations, we have seen it. At least the organizations I work with, we have seen it. But I think it's less compared to it would be in some other geographies like US and Europe. It's slowly changing.
Who should lead the change? Is it
I think that has to be, if it's large company founder, it has to start from there.
ओके गॉट चंदू भाई एक और विषय जो अभी आता है वो है ले ऑफ्स। अगर आप कोई भी अखबार पढ़ लीजिए, बड़ी कंपनियां हैं, करोड़ों रुपए प्रॉफिट हो रही है, फिर भी आप सडनली आप पढ़ेंगे कि 10,000 लोगों को उन्होंने निकाल दिया या 12,000 लोगों को निकाल दिया। कोविड एक ऐसा समय था जहाँ पे बहुत सारी कंपनियां जेन्युइनली डिफिकल्ट थी, बहुत सारे, बट बहुत सारों में प्रॉफिट की कोई इश्यू नहीं थी। फिर भी उन्होंने उस वक्त के लिए डिसाइड किया कि भाई 10,000 लोगों को भी निकाल दें, फिर बाद में अगर ग्रोथ होगा तो देखा जाए।
लोगों क्या है, मैं तो हमारे एचआर को बोलता हूँ कि हमारा साथीदार है, तो हम किसी को निकाल नहीं सकते। तो हमने क्या किया, ये जो चड्ढा जी बैठे हैं, हमने उसी टाइम एम्प्लॉयमेंट बढ़ा दिया। सब कोरोना कोरोना करते रहे, मैंने बोला कोरोना बड़ी रात है तो बड़ा दिन आएगा, तो कमार तो बड़ा एक्सपांशन किया हमने। आप देख लेना, और बालाजी डालेंगे में देखने को मिलेगा। हमने बड़ा एक्सपांशन किया। सबसे बड़ा पूरे वर्ल्ड में ये कोरोना और ये यूक्रेन का युद्ध सबसे बड़ी दिक्कत मेरे समझ में दो आई। ये दो दिक्कत 3 सालों में हमने 25 करोड़ का बिजनेस किया था। ये 3 साल में 25 करोड़ का बिजनेस किया। सारे लोग कोरोना कोरोना करते रहे, बालाजी का जबरदस्त एक्सपांड कर दिया। हमने 3 साल में प्रॉफिट नहीं किया, लेकिन 3 साल में समझो 300-400 करोड़ का प्रॉफिट नहीं हुआ तो क्या हुआ। लेकिन हमने 2500 करोड़ का 2500 करोड़ का बिजनेस कर दिया। 1000 करोड़ डाले बाजार में तो अभी कर नहीं सकते। तो आज डबल वैल्यू कर दी हमने ब्रांड। तो कुछ पाने के लिए कुछ खोना पड़ेगा, हमको कुछ खोना नहीं है, बस निकाल दो, नहीं जरूर है, घोड़ा लंगड़ा हो गया है, ऐसा नहीं होना है। इंसानियत बोला ना, हम एक इंसानियत के आधार पे काम, विश्वास ऐसे नहीं बनती प्रोफेसर, दिल से विश्वास बनता है, बातों से विश्वास नहीं बनता। वो काम और थोड़ा ये टच हमारे न्यू जनरेशन दिमाग से बात करती है, दिल वाली। तो ये है आज और हमने employment बढ़ाया तो गुजरात सरकार ने हमको कुछ पैसा दिया करोड़ कि तुमने ये मुसीबत के समय में लोगों को जनरेशन एम्प्लॉयमेंट बढ़ाया, सरकार ने पैसा दिया और हमारा बदनाम किया। तो मौके पे चौका हम तो मारने वाले हैं, हम कोई बिजनेसमैन नहीं है, हम तो एक इंसानियत के आधार पे ताकत बनाते हैं।
Balaji, your view on the same thing. I mean, of recent it has happened.
I think it's very similar to experience we had, in the last 3 years corona. I think the university setup saw the healthcare. I don't think we had done layoffs. I think it comes from the founder, it comes from the principles of the founder actually. Compassion, empathy. These are things so can never go out of fashion. I think we embraced it. We just kept it going. Did some salary cuts, cut off budgets, right? They essentially kept a large pool in the company. It's important.
एक आखिरी सवाल आप दोनों से, चंदू भाई आपसे बिजनेस स्पेसिफिकली बालाजी वेफर्स को लेके, आप ऑब्वियसली बड़े एमएनसीओ से आप कम्पीट कर रहे हैं, करेक्ट? और अब उनसे आप जब कम्पीट कर रहे हैं, अब ऑब्वियसली आपका एक लो कॉस्ट मॉडल है जिसके तरीके से आपने आपका काफी सक्सेस हुआ है। आप किस तरीके से कंज्यूमर सेंटिमेंट पढ़ते हैं कि किस तरीके से हमें प्रोडक्ट चेंज करना है, जो कि बड़ी कंपनियां नहीं कर?
ये तो लो कॉस्ट बोला आपने। हमारा लो कॉस्ट इसीलिए है कि हमारा खर्चा नहीं है, हमारा नाटक नहीं है। हमारे कंपनी में कोई नाटक नहीं है। जो नाटक क्या है, टारगेट, सेल की बातें, सेल वाली बड़ी टीम। ये सेल वाली टीम नाटक, कोई सेल वाली टीम बोली जाए, मेरे हिसाब से आपको ये समझना नहीं है। मेरे बेटे की मार्केटिंग के समय मेरे को ट्रेनिंग देते, तो ये इसलिए हमारा हम लो कॉस्ट में बेचते हैं, बाकी क्वालिटी में हम कोई कॉम्प्रोमाइज नहीं। दूसरी बात ये है कि हमारे पास एमएनसी के पास सिर्फ दिमाग से, ब्रेन से चलने वाले काम है। हम बोलते हैं यहाँ अगर वोट नहीं चाहिए, हमारा काम है लोगों को सेटिस्फाई करना। कंपनी बंद हो जाएगी और नियम रहेगा, और नियम क्या काम का है? नियम हमेशा ऋतु बदलती है, थोड़ा चेंज होना चाहिए ऋतु के हिसाब, समय के हिसाब से नियम लागू होना चाहिए। मैं बोलता हूँ, हमको कोई माल देता है, साला इसके बाप का माल है कि तेरे बाप का? उसके बाप का माल है और पैसा दे, वो कैसे तय कर सकता है? उसको समझा सकता है। तो हम क्या है, इनसे बातें करते हैं, समझते हैं। तो हमारे पास इंडियन है और हमारे पास न्यू जनरेशन है, तो हमारे पास वेस्टर्न प्रोडक्ट भी है, हमारे पास इंडियन प्रोडक्ट भी है। हम नहीं है लेकिन कल आएंगे। ऐसे हमारी स्ट्रेटेजी है। ना कोई धूम धड़ाका होगा, सबके मार्केट में थोड़ा 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 नंबर 1 हो जाएंगे आप 5 साल।
बहुत
तो ये एमएनसी कंपनी नहीं कर सकती। एमएनसी कंपनी क्या करते हैं, वहाँ अलग स्ट्रेटेजी करनी है, वहाँ हमको टारगेट देना है, वहाँ हमको स्कीम देनी है, वहाँ इंसेंटिव देना है सेल के हिसाब से। नहीं, हमको कुछ नहीं। हमको डीलर सेटिस्फाई होना चाहिए, डीलर को नुकसान नहीं होना चाहिए। वो डीलर आरओआई कैसे हो, ये समझा। आरओआई से प्रॉफिट लेना है हमको, और उसको नुकसान जाता है तो हमारा एक डीलर है, हो जाता है तो वो तुमको पाप लगे, क्योंकि बंद होगा तो जीवन में तो बिजनेस नहीं करेगा। बिजनेस करना सबसे बड़ा धर्म है, तो वो धर्म ही तो धर्म है, तो वो बंद नहीं होना चाहिए। वो जिम्मेदारी की बातें मैं करता हूँ, और वो एमएनसी क्या करती है, तुमको इतना सेल करना ही पड़ेगा। हम ये खिलौना नहीं बनाते, हम इंसान बनाते हैं। एमएनसी और इंडियन कंपनी फर्क होता है।
बहुत धन्यवाद बालाजी। आई थिंक दैट्स वन larger topic. Large companies, MNCs, they say the average age of a company on Fortune 500 is 7 years to 10 years, right? What do you think large companies can do, if at all, to be slightly nimble, nimble in the way?
Large company, no. So I think example set is how do we. He said that he wants to set about any company which could be number 1 for India, right? I think I can give an example of companies which I work with, right? So I think as an organization, as Manipur, we have been very flexible it's fairly large. So as a core team of leaders, which is been there for some time. It's means that going from just healthcare example, a hospital in 2 cities to being the number 2 in the country today, I think that decisions were taken pretty fast. So I don't know. I have never worked in a multinational, so I do not know. But broadly, working in a larger company in the Indian country, even is founder driven. Even large Indian decisions are taken by the founding families and things like that, which I think, much like in Europe, is a good thing. It helps you to be nimble and fast. It's happening in more Indian kind of a setup. I do not for the
Yeah,
multinational.
no, I think makes sense. I think we're pretty much end of time, so I just want to make sure we get at least a question or two, given the individuals we have. So if there's any question that anybody want to ask,
नहीं ऐसा थोड़ा
no, good. So I think we will kind of close it. I'm mindful we started about 15-20 minutes late, and it's pretty late. Given the time of the day, what we'll do is we'll close the session here. We'll hopefully catch up, during dinner with all of you. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I would request Mr. Sudeep George to join us on stage. He's the Chief Operating Officer at TeamLease. Please help me present a small token of appreciation to all our participants. Mr. Chandubhai Virani. Mr. Balaji Iyengar. Mr. Kartik Narayan. I would request everyone to stay back for a quick group photo. Bala, if you could join us. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. चंदू भाई. हम आपके जज्बे, कॉन्फिडेंस और कहानियों से बहुत सीखे हैं और उसका सलाम करते हैं. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Balaji Iyengar. Thank you so much for your valuable inputs. And with that, the third and final panel discussion also comes to an end. Our sincerest gratitude to each esteemed panelist for their invaluable contributions. Now, as we reach to the conclusion of the event, I would like to extend an invitation to Mr. Bala Subramaniam A, VP and Business Head Team Lease, to come on stage and convey the closing remarks. Over to you, sir.
Conscious of the fact that I'm standing in the way of this entire group on dinner, but I promise I won't take more than maybe 3 or 4 minutes. So firstly, thank you so much, everybody, for making this possible, especially applause for must have started at your home or your office, wherever it is, yesterday in order to be able to make it here on time. So thank you so much for that as well. I've been reading recently about super taxis. I just hope they become commercially viable. All order ready for today to talk about dissecting the present and balancing that with the next 10 years. In this context, I just wanted to take a step back quickly and look at the immediate past. So this is the second such large format event we are doing in the last few months. The first one was in Mumbai in October last year. But the one prior to that was 4 years in the past. I think it's anybody's guess as to why there was a 4-year period in between these two sessions. But back then too, that session also had a separate theme. I think it was about predicating what's going to happen in the next 5 years and so on and so forth. Because I think it was in light of planning commission going away, Niti Aayog taking its place, and so on and so forth. So the next 5 years, what does it really hold if you're not going to repeat this? At that point in time, there is no way anybody could have predicted that there is going to be a pandemic in 5 months' time. There's going to be a war in Europe for 2 years. There's going to be a war in the Middle East in 4 years' time. Obviously, none of those or those predictions could have been made at that time. But what did happen was there was some people who were told that India will soon be 5 in global GDP terms, possibly 4, maybe even 2. And here we are, and we've been striking this. That Sensex is going to double in the next 3 or 4 years' time, 35,000 to about 70,000, and here we are past 70,000 right now, and possibly more as well. Somebody has also said that gone are the days and your degrees, etc., used to be secondary, but it's just vanilla. All this job skills which are catering to this outcome is really going to matter. And again, here we are today, and if anything, it's just only more relevant now than it was then. So, uh, while of course there are a lot of things, the world just keeps getting more and more we've seen in the last 4 years on the surface, but the fundamental things do remain the same. And foremost of that is the limitless potential of the. I just wanted to just give a quick uh, point or an anecdote about what I did. We share an embarrassing amount of commonality with Chipper. You would have heard it, sure, but 99% of the DNA pool is the same. It's just 1% that is different. It's scientifically proven and tested as well. But look at what that 1% has compounded over in the last 12,000 years of civilization. It's just that 1% that makes the difference. Of course, among many things, it has a lot of traits, that 1%. But key amongst that is the ability or the skill for mass cooperation. Chimpanzees are incapable of. They can only live in small nomadic groups and they cannot. So did we until 10,000, which is largely accepted as the dawn of civilization. Uh, a couple of a few months ago, we had this World Cup final, Narendra Modi Stadium, Ahmedabad, a lakh people. We lost, but still people behaved in a civil way, right? Imagine putting 1 lakh chimpanzees in that stadium. That's the end of the world. That's the difference of that 1%. And that's what made all of this possible. And it is that one trait which has resulted in countries with crores of people and companies with lakhs of employees. Without which we'd be nowhere. So the single underpinning, the common fabric of all of that. And it was really fantastic to see over the course of these sessions today that some of those timeless thoughts were brought to the fore as well. I remember some points that really stood out. Where there is no such thing as people strategy and business strategy, they are essentially the same. Absolutely. And I think some of the other people in the second session also said that there's no such thing as job readiness. We were born ready. That's 1% talking again. And of course, mentors learning more from mentees rather than the other way around as is the norm. And that's again proof of evolution and adaptability and nimbleness to your point as well. And, last but not the least, I really have to call this out that दिल से विश्वास बनता है और बातों से. So thank you so much for sharing such beautiful nuggets of wisdom from your experience, everybody. Have a great dinner and a good night.
Thank you, Mr. Balasubramaniam, for your insightful words. We would also like to thank everyone for making this event a huge success. I just wanted to request each one of you to take a moment and fill the feedback forms on your table. Your inputs are really crucial for us. It will help us to continually improve and deliver exceptional events for future. And please do not miss to enjoy the delightful dinner served in the lounge area. Thank you once again. Good night.